Welcome to the May 5th meeting of the Municipal Building Commission, our first in-person meeting in more than a year. And Jeremy, you're lucky because you can see everybody, so I don't know that we have to call the roll.
Well, I can't see everybody. I can only see you and Andrew.
Oh, okay. Well, they're all here. So,
All right.
So let the record reflect that the entire commission is here and our staff person is here. And so I think that the first order of business, let's skip the roll call and why don't we take a motion for the April 7th and April 28th minutes.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. This is going to make life easy, Jeremy. I forgot what it was like to have an in-person meeting. All right, so I think next we will go to the library. And Evan, I can see you remotely. You can see us and hear us. You can't hear.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
There we go. Okay.
Just unmuted. So if I could, I'll share my screen here.
I thought I saw that Amy was with us. Anybody else with us, Jim? No? Okay. So Evan, the floor is yours.
Okay. So library's doing well. Contractor's doing a good job. We are currently at 52% or the halfway mark complete on this project. And that includes a pay app that's before you for approval of just under $500,000. So things are looking good. Schedule wise, we are probably about 4 days behind technically in the overall schedule. And we are making attempts to accelerate and recapture that schedule. So we do anticipate that we will still be able to meet the July 31st substantial completion date. And so that is our hope as we move forward. I'm just going to quickly run through a number of photos here. We can see some slate roofing, some copper flashings, and some urns that we've got going. Another look at that. Taking a look again at some of the new matched profiles for the copper. Up top, we've got some cleaning going on here. You can see to the right kind of the existing, and to the left the cleaned portions of those. Again, some more copper roofing that has been completed. So here we've actually been done with the north and the south lower roofs in terms of the membrane roofing that's gone on, and they have now come back and started to remove the stone or cast caps. You can kind of see the condition of what that existing condition was. I'm sorry. And here we go. So this is with the caps removed, copper flashings over the top, and then those caps will get reinstalled. We also had quite a bit of work with the remaining rooftop units delivered and placed on site. So pretty much anything that's shiny and new, you can see are actually new, along with some wiring and whatnot for electrical to those units. Some other curbs have been removed and those have been infilled and patched. Inside, this is actually up on the 4th floor, which is phase 2. Phase 2 is substantially complete. And this is giving you an idea of, so this had previously been all open ceilings, quite a bit of work in here. There was mechanical equipment, etc. We actually did remove a slab, a raised slab that was down here. And then you can see some of the work opening up and gaining access to be able to pull wires and HVAC for our new construction related items in phase 3 on the floors below. And just a reminder, phase 3 is largely the north half of the building, first, second, and third floors there. In addition to that, we've actually started up with some coordination with an E-rate project that the library is undertaking. So here's an idea of some of the things that we're actually trying to clean up with the E-rate project. We've identified and been working closely. So we'll need to kind of, the intent is to provide some power sources, relocate some, have new cabinets, and actually have IT areas on each of the lower floor levels to try to clean that up. So generally progress is good. Any questions relative to construction project progress? Okay.
A quick question, if I could.
Mike, why don't you pull your mask down while you speak so we can hear you?
Okay, just a quick question, if I could, more of a technical. Is the copper roof and flasher, is that soldered or brazed together?
Yeah, that is actually soldered together.
Soldered together? Okay.
Yeah, so it's copper with, I was going to say lead brazing, but I'm sure that it's we're getting away from lead these days in terms of the solder. Yeah, so the brazing, I guess, technically would be a brass or bronze, but this is the right application for those copper areas. So that's all solder that you're seeing at the corners and those juncture pieces.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it looks great. A lot of nice craftsmanship with that copper. That's not easy either. You know,
Yeah.
Job.
Yep, I think the roofer's actually done quite a nice job, as well as the architect, in terms of making sure that we identified, measured, and matched the existing profile. So we're basically just getting a new version of what was originally there. With that, I will just quickly move on to the budget. Budget has remained largely unchanged. Certainly the total project budget remains the same. The update that you have before you here is just for change order 2. This is an actual 3 items that are associated with change order 2. And those are the 3 change request items that were previously approved at the last MBC meeting. So that's the library budget. Are there any questions relative to the budget before I move on to the change log? Okay. So with the change log, again, we have change order 2. That's at this upper area. And we're looking for a formal approval on that in the amount of $6,585.35. Again, these are the same items with the same value from last month. In addition to that, we have some copper flashing. So these capstones that that we were looking at on the lower roofs, in order should get pinned to the substrate below. So in order to do that, we would need these copper flashing thimbles to do that properly. And that's at a cost of $5,597.04. So we're looking for approval so that we can continue to move forward on that. Additionally, relative to construction changes, number of items that I've added to the change log here. Second floor plaster repair and painting. So on the second floor of the original building, there are some minor wall cracks and some cracking and repair to the interior plaster cornice piece. This is the most beautiful area of the library, and think that once we're done, that we shouldn't walk away from this project without fixing that. So I put a plug number in of $20,000 for that. I'm sorry?
Staff, if they can turn the blower off so that we can hear better. Will we be able to take care of that, Jim?
It's gonna ask the estimate, so.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Evan, it's just difficult to hear with this, the blower that's on here. So please pick up where you were. Sorry for the
Okay.
interruption.
Yeah, no, I thought you were talking about my HVAC system that's pretty loud behind me. So we have the painter doing kind of a mock-up on T&M to make sure and to get an idea of pricing before we consider moving forward. But I think would like some feedback from the commission on whether you would support that that type of thing. We've certainly reviewed that with the library and internally with the design team and the city, and it appears that this is a reasonable endeavor that we should pursue there. Additionally, there's a Skylight Electrical item that I've added. So there's existing skylights at the library that we are replacing. However, there's some conduits and back boxes that appear to have been from previous skylight mounted lights that we will need to have the electrician cut and cap and make safe so that we can remove the old skylights and put in the new one. So again, I have a rough number of about $8,000. We pursued a few different ways to do this, and we are hoping that we can have the electrician do that from the roof as opposed to bear the cost of a tall scissor lift to get that work done. But that is actually work that we absolutely will need to do and was not part of the original documents. So these E-rate accommodations, that rat's nests of wires and whatnot that I had showed the picture of, we have some plywood backing panels as well as some electrical support to that E-rate project that we're looking to do. Again, I put enough rough order of magnitude number of 20,000 just to keep this going on the change log. And then we also have identified there are 2 urns at the old original entrance to the library. These sit on the pediment above those entry stairs. And since we were up there, so at this point, we're trying to remove them and do a better job flashing those in so that we don't have problems in the future. So we're pursuing that on a T&M basis. And again, I have about a $10,000 plug number in there. So when you move up the change orders, the previous change requests that are now part of change order 2, that brings our change order total after approval this evening would be to $410,000 and some change. And then our other potential changes, and again, these are potential changes, not actual, of just shy of $300,000. If all of those changes were realized, we would still have a remaining contingency, construction contingency of over 1.1 million. So I think we are in very good shape relative to our contingency, the overall project budget, and I think the items that we are pursuing are the right types of things for the library and to take care of on a project like this. So I think relative to change approvals, construction-related change approvals, we'd be looking for an approval on change order 2 in the amount of $6,585.35 and an approval for CR9 in the amount of $5,597.04. Jack, is that something you want to take up now or do at the end?
Yeah, so the other ones that you went over are just FYIs at this point, correct?
Correct.
So first, with regard to change order 2, does anybody have any questions or comments? I mean, these are things that we had approved before, but go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Jack. So comment, then a question. Number one, I'm glad that we, replacing skylights. The first place the roof is gonna leak is when somebody tries to save a skylight. I mean, that's definitely, so it was a great decision. But when we talk about their electrical, these have, what do they have, rain sensors on them or something like that? Or they, I don't know what that is. Is that lighting?
No, so nothing that sophisticated. It appears that there may have been some track lighting or down lighting, something that was actually fastened to and hung from. Initially, we thought that the electrical that we were seeing on the skylights were for these fans that are up high to be able to move some of that hot air and whatnot. But additional investigation by the electrician, he's reasonably sure that these are lights that were that have been abandoned or something. Regardless of what they were supplying, we'll need to address them so that the old skylight can come off and the new one can go on.
Thank you.
So with regard to change order 2, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Then with regard to change request number 9, is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
And is there any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Evan, there was one other item that you said you wanted some feedback from us on.
Yeah, really. Yeah, so that is really just this, the second floor plaster repair and painting. That is not, that's kind of an elective item. And I don't think we want to wait to release these folks once they do their mock-up and whatnot to try to get the contractors that are currently working in those areas to continue on. So, I suppose we could do a not to exceed or something like that without coming back or I'm not quite sure how to handle that, Jack.
And is this in the marble room? Or-
Yes, the marble room and the adjacent 2 rooms that are right off of that with the fireplaces.
And those are probably among the nicest looking rooms in the entire city. The 1907 building, correct?
Yep.
That's right.
So it strikes me that as long as we're there, we have the contractor there, we should take care of things rather than leaving that to the library maintenance staff. I'm seeing a lot of heads shaking yes. So what would our not to exceed price be, Evan?
I don't know. I'd say at this point, let's maybe say 25,000. And I sincerely hope that we're probably talking more like half of that. But that would give us some leeway to make sure that we get it taken care of.
And as I understand it, what you're saying is that if we waited another month, we would have passed the time frame when it could be done efficiently, correct?
That is right.
Okay, so I guess as much as the number bothers me, we're gonna have to rely on you to make sure that it comes in lower. Gail?
I just had a question. How big is the area that they need to repair? Is it a whole room? Is it several rooms? Is it?
Yeah, so what this entails is three different rooms. The walls are in very good shape, but there are some hairline cracks and whatnot. So the thought is that we get those cracks taken care of at the walls, and that we need to repaint those lower wall sections. Relative to the cornice that's within those three rooms, there is also cracking and some other repair that needs to go on. And since that is up quite high, we don't think that we need to paint, kind of repaint all of that, but that we can just do some repairs and paint and blend that in. So there isn't a whole lot going on there. It's just, you know, it's up high, it's fussy work, and it's prevailing wage for public jobs.
Okay, I'm just curious because that, like Jack said, it does seem like a high price for that work.
Correct. And again, this is just a rough order of magnitude. And we certainly would expect, again, something to the 10 to 15 grand range is what I would actually expect this to ultimately wind up as. We will know better in another week or so when they're done with their initial mock-up, and keeping track of that time.
Okay.
So this will be on time and materials.
Yeah, I believe that it will.
Move to approve. Second.
That
That
did
did have a not to exceed.
Not to exceed, yeah.
Yeah, 25.
Any other comments or questions?
Just one, is it anticipated most of the cost is labor or material?
It's late. It is almost, I'd say it's 85% labor, if not 90% labor, and the paint's nominal, and the plaster repair stuff is nominal.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next thing I'd like to review with folks is our soft cost. So we have one change that should have been in your packet. And let me explain this a bit. So we had some issues while the roofer's been doing a good job in some areas. We had an issue with some of the disposal of some roofing materials that contained asbestos. And as such, there was some additional cleanup that was required by DEP that needed a hygienist to sign off on that, to make sure and satisfy DEP's concern there. This is not something that we should have to pay for and will not be paying for. The contractor will, but for obvious reasons, we can't really have the contractor be paying our architect and their consultant directly on this. So what this is for is an amendment to the BH&A contract in the amount of $7,317. So we would be looking to increase the BHA contract by that amount. And then we will be getting a deduct change order or portion of a change order that has a deduct of that same amount, so that it's costing the city $0 relative to an issue that we did not create.
So that deduct change order would be to track builders, and they in turn would pass that along to is it Capeway? Is that our roofer?
That's right, to the Capeway roofer, as we do not have a contract with Capeway. We have a contract with Track. Track has the contract with Capeway.
So therefore, this is just a technical housekeeping matter. Even though we're increasing one contract, we're going to get a credit on another, correct?
That is correct. And then with
Okay.
that, we, you know.
This was something that there was no choice about. There was some inspectors that came out and mandated that this occur, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so therefore, a motion would be in order to approve the upcharge for BH&A.
So moved. Second.
Is there any further discussion or questions?
Just a clarifying question, is the amount, what is reflected as the total here, $7,317, or is it the amount of the fee, which is $5,270?
So it's the total amount, the $7,317. So there was additional work by the architect and their consultants. So there's the hygienist, that's the 5270, the BH&A markup on that, which is standard and normal and part of their contract, as well as some additional architect's time to coordinate all of the above.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. We're
So
actually.
Jack, that's all I had for the team, unless there were any other questions.
No, I think we're doing well on time here. Deb, did you join us?
Yeah, sorry, I was late. I had some Zoom difficulty, but I'm on it now. The one thing I just wanted to get back to you on that came up last month was the lighting fixture rebate. And I did check on the status of that, and that is in process now. There were some forms that went to Jeremy and others at the city and got signed, and that's now all back in the hands of National Grid. And they're looking at that, and they think that's pretty promising. That could be a nice rebate.
And do those funds, Jeremy, do they go directly to the city or do they go back into the project budget?
No, they would go to the city because we would get them on recurring bills after time. So the way a lot of our rebates work right now is that we actually, we pay X amount of dollars to National Grid, but we, get X plus Y back, sort of thing. No, we would be getting that as billed credits, I believe, and it would not have anything to do with the project budget.
Okay. So let me just check here. I've got an email from Deb, but obviously she cured that problem. So good. All right. I think then that unless Mr. Barton has something to add.
No, Evan, you look good from here. That's all.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, so nothing further for Evan or Deb from any commission members? Then it looks like we'll Oh, and Amy, are you on with us?
I'm here.
Any questions or comments you may have?
No, we're pleased, exciting to see we're halfway through and it's going well.
Excellent, excellent. Okay.
Oh, I did want to say, if anyone wants to come and see the marble lobby, I'm here every day. Stop on by, reach out. I'm happy to show them around.
Thank you. All right, so then I think we can move on from the library. Thank you all who were here for the library project. And Jeremy, is there any update on the Attleboro Pawtucket Water Interconnect?
I don't know much more than you, in that I can get something from Courtney and update the group, but we're moving forward with our site plan review as I understand it. But I don't have an update for the group now.
Yeah, the site plan review was actually passed. So we finished that. So now the question is, where is CDM Smith in terms of getting this out to bid? So in your spare time, could you make a phone call and find out?
Certainly. Yeah, I'll update the committee next month, if not in the interim.
Okay. All right, then it looks like we need to pay some bills. I see we have a bunch of bills for the library. STV, DPM, Track Builders, BH&A has 3 bills. And Jeremy, there's bid docs online.
Yeah, let me talk about a couple of these. So BH&A has 3 bills because rather than billing separate line items of their purchase order with us on one invoice, they billed 3 different invoices. I think they've done this for about 2 months now. So that's why we've got 3 different ones. Bid docs online, it's what we use to host and advertise our bids for the library in the fall. I was under the impression that STV had billed us for that as a pass-through. Which they did not. I went back and checked. They did not. It's on us to bill. It's on us to pay. So even though it's from October, that's my fault. It should have been on there sooner. But that was what we used to disseminate our bid plans, get our plan holder list, and advertise in the fall for the library.
And you've reviewed the CDM Smith bill for the water interconnect?
Yeah, it was mainly labor related to preparing for our meetings and plan review and the like. And Courtney Wunschel, the water superintendent, has also approved that.
Okay. And for the fire department roofs, is that Mark's bill?
That is Mark's bill. We all saw the fruits of his labor last week when we met to go over and shortlist, and he will be joining us again tonight. So yes, that is Mark's bill.
He is in the room.
Excellent.
And all right, then also all the bills are in order to pay.
Correct.
All right. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. I think we can then move on to fire department roofs. Is CBI going to be here in person?
Yes, CBI is in person at 6:15, Russo Bar at 6:50. DeGiorgio is participating remotely at 7:25, and RGB will be in person at 8 o'clock.
Okay, and I believe you sent around a list of questions.
I did. Those were the questions I compiled from Mark and commission members. I let the firms know that they weren't required to respond in writing to those questions, as they only had a few days, but to be prepared to answer those questions specifically, because that's what the committee had identified as areas that they wanted to explore.
Okay, very good. So I guess, Mark, is there any preliminary things you want to say before we get the first candidate here?
Perhaps, are any of the potential respondents on Zoom currently?
I am.
Are any of, oh, I'm sorry. Are any of the potential respondents on Zoom currently?
You can ask Jim that.
Okay. So I did a deeper dive once the commission had shortlisted the four. And there were a couple of questions that came up. One, within the DeGiorgio response, this is general information for the commission members. In the DeGiorgio response, they had indicated that they have an in-house MEP, or mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers and consultants. They had indicated that they would be willing to assess the conditions of the existing RTUs or rooftop units or mechanical equipment on the existing fire station roofs. Don't know whether or not that would be part of a basic or an additional service. They're the only one that had indicated that they had those capabilities. Additionally, they also have a sister company that they referred to within the four corners of their document. And so that not only do they provide design and engineering services, but they're also a contractor. So obviously, if they were the successful candidate, it would be very important to receive an assurance from them that their contracting sister company would not bid on the project. Obviously, the potential conflict of interest there. Next, there was an issue that came up about 521 CMR, Massachusetts regulations having to do with Massachusetts Architectural Access Board. One of the respondents indicated that they would be doing a review of that section of the access board code to determine whether or not the improvements to either or both of these buildings would trigger any kind of ADA compliance. I don't think that over the prior 4 years, I think that's what the AAB looks at in terms of capital improvements to your building, that you would have exceeded 25% of the assessed value. But that is a code issue that could potentially rise up. I don't know to what extent the code would require a candidate, the building to be brought up to code for roof improvements. It's an open question. I thought it was an interesting comment made by one of them. And then lastly, there were inconsistent responses in pursuant to their response of the RFQ having to do with taking of meeting minutes. So some indicated that they were certainly going to be taking and distributing meeting minutes. Others were silent on the matter. So in addition to the 8 typed questions that Jeremy had proffered to them, we may want to intersperse some of those questions. And with your permission, I'll ask them.
Sure, I think that's fine. And it strikes me, however, that we should find out, maybe Jeremy can do it, find out what the assessed value of the 2 buildings are. Or I thought it was the 30% threshold, but
It could be. The property cards that were included within the RFQ do state it. The fire station headquarters has a total assessed value at $815,000. And the
which would mean that 250 grand would be 30%, right?
Right.
And
A little
how much
over.
is our estimate?
The range was 400 to 450 for both.
Right, but what would, do we know what it would be for the headquarters?
Well, it's given that the square footage of the entire building is approximately 12,000 square feet. Using $20 per square foot, we're looking at in the neighborhood of 240,000 for base bid, if it comes in at $20 a square foot.
And do we know what the assessed value is for, was it Briggs Corner?
255. And their roof area is 2,000 square feet. So again, using the same model, that might be $40,000-$50,000, which would be, again, very close to that threshold amount, whether it's 25 or 30 or what have you.
So is it but possible that we may have to seek a waiver from the Architectural Access Barrier Board to undertake these projects?
I think what we would do is work with our successful respondent, the recommended candidate, to ask them their opinion, because obviously a fire station generally does not have an accessible component because of the nature of the services rendered. And and generally speaking, the workers who would attend to making roof repairs or needing access to the roof are generally not provided elevator access or other AAB compliant.
Right, but the AAB compliance is everything from bathroom stalls and sink heights to elevators, right?
Again, this is a selective improvement under Chapter 34. So again, we need to ask the architect or the selected candidate how to go about not triggering that compliance requirement if that is what the city requests.
Okay, well, I fully understand what you're saying. I'm just concerned that if we had to make both of those fire stations meet the code as of May 5th, 2021, we would be spending, well, we would not have a budget that would cover that.
You probably wouldn't be doing the work within those two buildings.
Yeah.
It'd probably be cheaper for you to build two new buildings than it would to actually try and comply.
Well, that's another interesting topic as to whether we're going to end up with a new public safety building in Attleboro.
Now you did it.
So you walked right into one of my
Did you
pet
plant him
projects.
here?
That was a plant.
So I think with that, it's about 6:15, and I think I see someone here. So I'm wondering, Mark, if you want to let them use your area, if you want to move up to the Bob Barton seat, and is somebody here from CBI?
Don't look at the kids' table. Right.
Welcome. This is the Municipal Building Commission, and we are anxious to see your presentation and to ask you a few questions. You can feel free to stand, or sit, whatever is comfortable for you. I usually prefer to stand when I'm making a presentation, but that's just me. Do you have something that can be projected on the screen?
Yes, we brought a PowerPoint.
Okay,
Be
so
running it for us.
take it away.
Okay. Okay, my name's Arnold Skalski. I'm with CBI Consulting, we're located in Boston, Massachusetts. This is Eric Wooden. He's a project manager and a registered roof consultant. He actually went to the walkthrough that was conducted earlier last month. And if you could please go to the next slide.
Just keep your voice up because there's thousands of people at home watching this,
Okay.
as well as all of us here in the room.
So other than myself and Eric, we have a full project team. Michael Teller, he's the principal in charge. Fortunately, he couldn't make it today. We also have Wayne Lawson, who's a principal of our structural engineering group. He'll be involved with the project. Again, we introduced Eric. We've got Susanna Davis, who's one of our field inspectors that'll be involved in the project, as well as one of our architectural designers, John B. Patel. Next slide, please. So CBI offers many services. One of the more important and critical services that we provide, and that's why we're here today, is building envelope. We do roofing, roof consulting, repair and restoration of masonry buildings, concrete buildings, window replacements. We've done every type of building you can imagine, of all heights and sizes and types. We also offer architecture. We wouldn't say we're new school architects or conceptual architects, but we're involved in many restoration and repair projects, ADA, accessibility projects, things along those nature. We also offer structural engineering. It complements the building envelope side of our group. as well as they also provide structural engineering for other firms as well. We do historic restorations. We have an extensive portfolio in historic restoration. We also offer commissioning services. We have a house doctor with the Division of Capital Asset Management, as well as with the Massachusetts School Board Authority. So we provide commissioning service for all the window replacement projects, such as in this school, if this were undertaken a window replacement project, as well as the roof replacement projects. We have code advisory, we have an energy group, and we also provide owner's project management services. And we are actually involved, getting involved with a project in Chelsea to build one of their new fire stations. Next slide, please. So we've done hundreds of roofs for all the municipalities, schools, town hall, you name it. But we do have a good portfolio of fire stations. These are a few of the recent projects we've completed. A project in Dover, and 3 different stations in Brookline, as well as 2 different stations for the city of Lynn. And we're actually under design for the roofing replacement for the city of Lawrence. Next slide, please. Eric, Eric's going to talk about your project.
So I was fortunate to come out to the walkthrough and take a look at these buildings. I've put together a couple of photographs, a couple of talking points. Basically, I'm not going to show you how bad your roof is. You know that. That's why we're here having this conversation. So here's a view of just the outside of the fire department headquarters. Next slide, please. And from Google Maps, you can see that we've got 3 visible roof areas here, but there is the smaller lower one in the back. If you had noted in my preliminary report, we have 3 different types of structural deck here. We've got wood, we've got steel, and we've got cast concrete. Each of these are going to take different design considerations in terms of fastening the roofing system down to the building. You can also tell when you go up and look around there that these roofing systems are from different eras. It wasn't all installed at once, or else we'd expect to see a clearly uniform installation. But even in this image, you can see that 2/3 of the roof is covered with a ballasted stone. Next slide, please. Something that jumped out at me when we were up on the headquarters main roof were these old flashings that had been stripped in again and again in kind of a non-uniform way. And these 3 copper whirlybirds that you can see here, the ventilation features, I'd like to find out what exactly those are ventilating, because I'm concerned that through years of restoring this roof, the roof might be having a bit of an identity crisis as to where the thermal layer is. There's definitely insulation up on the roof, but I'm used to seeing those types of vents for a cavity beneath, which should have insulation below it. So I think that we should take a really good close look at this during the investigation. Next slide, please. We also noted that at the sleeves on this same roof, they were wrapped with copper. Typically, we see copper used with asphaltic roofing systems. Copper and asphalt get along very well. We have a lot of suspicions that you have a built-up asphaltic roofing system underneath what we can see with the EPDM. Next slide, please. Here's
So
a
are you
close-up.
saying that you think that the last time the roof was replaced, they just went over what was there and didn't strip it off?
That's correct.
Thank you.
And this was a very common practice in the latter half of the last century because of the cost of removing the built-up roofing. Sometimes they used asbestos as a filler. And under the Massachusetts code, you are allowed to recover a roof, applying a roofing system over a roofing system exactly once. But there's very explicit language that says you have to go down to the structural deck once you've done that. So we suspect that the town has already used their recover in the last job. So we need to get down and take a look at the deck, which is great, because if you've gone through 2 lifetimes of a roofing system, you weren't replacing them for fun. There was a reason. There's probably failures. And the idea is they want you to be able to take a look at the structural deck and make sure that there isn't any damage that has, gone unobserved for the last 50-something years. It's got to think there. Next slide, please. So while I was also up there, I noticed that we had signs of ponding. We put a lot of thought and consideration into our drainage designs. Part of getting my credentials as a registered roofing consultant, I had to complete courses on how to complete those drainage calculations. They often go overlooked in the re-roofing industry, but they're absolutely critical because the drainage that these buildings were designed to is nothing compared to what the code requires, and the code is reflecting what science has demonstrated over time we need. Basically, they are underestimating how much water our roofs were going to be seeing. So we need to make sure that the drainage components are fully operational and they're sized correctly. You can also see in this image near the leading edge of the roof that series of 3 patches on the roof. There were plates underneath that. I'm wondering if the building maybe ever had an incident with the wind blow off, where the front end of it got blown up by a storm, and then some roofers came out and just put some fasteners through the top to seal it. But anyway, the reason why that probably happened is the adhesives for the membrane are failing. There's likely moisture that's working its way up from the building below. There's likely not an effective vapor barrier underneath it. It's going to cause those adhesives to fail. They billow more, they catch more wind, and they can get peeled off. Thank you. I also saw up on your roof a drainage feature I have never seen before, and that should be alarming. I'm about 10 years into my career. Arno's got a few more on me, but have you seen something like this? I understand the intent of it, but this is a very unusual plastic feature to have up at a drain. I would recommend when we do the replacement and we come back that we use industry standard features, no new and exciting product stuff that has a tried and true and proven performance. I would be surprised if we could even get a warranty from the manufacturer for a device like this. Yeah. Next slide, please. So when you're doing re-roof, it's really critical to approach the design with an eyes wide open. It's a holistic approach. It's not just the roof we're touching up there. Where it interacts with the other building envelope components, specifically the wall systems, the masonry here, those tie-ins are absolutely critical. If you do not get these right, it'll cause the system to prematurely fail, and we don't want that to happen. Next slide, please. So these are a couple of existing conditions. This is the one time I'm going to point at your roof and say it's terrible. Where we have these through wall flashings right over here and here. You can see it, this one, they've actually saw cut into the middle of the CMU block to install that what is likely a reglet flashing. We don't do that. You always want to be installing those types of flashings at the joints between the blocks. If you cut into the block, you're compromising the block, and could cause it to deteriorate rapidly. So those are the kind of things we're going to avoid when we've done that. Next slide, please.
Well, question, given that they exist, would your solution be to take it out, fix the block, and then do it right the second time?
So the fixing of the block is something we'd have to discuss with the structural team once we, they probably know, and then they'd have to see.
I mean, we're looking at replacing that and doing the correct through wall flashing at those locations, as well as making sure that you're not crossing over a control joint. I don't know if you noticed. Can you go back one slide? I'm sorry. So you can see that one flashing to the right. Well, they both do. They pass through a control joint, so there's no give or expansion to allow that to move. So
Arno,
and that's just going to open up and leak.
Yeah, Arno and I were discussing this detail earlier and how we would tackle it if we had to go past that joint. There's a way that you can do a slip sleeve, so you have a flashing on one side of the joint that the other flashing can fit into and slide freely with the movement of the building. Next slide, please. Drainage sides of existing obstructions. We wanted to take a good look at what's going on inside of your drain pipes, given that we have suspicions that there's a built-up roofing system that's there. One of the marketed features of the built-up roofing system way back was that it had a self-sealing potential. Basically, in the summertime, with all the heat that comes down from the sun, it actually becomes more viscous and it flows. And their idea was, oh, it will pump, if there was a puncture in the roof, it will flow onto it. But the problem is that it also flows down into your drains and it can obstruct your drains. And this is a big problem. So we'd like to get some cams down there to make sure that you're not blocked up at the street side. Something else that I observed, you can see at the top of this photo, it looks like the downspouts that they cut off here or removed. Something, I'm not sure what the story is there, but I'd be interested to hear. These would typically go down to the ground and then would feed into a stormwater runoff system at the street, maybe where those gas tanks are. So we'd want to take a look to find out, are those there? Were they closed off for a reason, perhaps because of the obstruction that we mentioned earlier? Next slide, please. So curb height and related work. The building code has been adding more and more installation requirements throughout the years for all the right reasons. But what we find again and again when we're doing roof restoration work is that the new insulation is deeper by usually a factor of 3, maybe 4 inches. And this causes all sorts of adjacent work requirements. Doors that step out onto the roof. I've included this hatch here. The hatch is too short. The manufacturers require that the terminations in the membrane have to be at least 8 inches above the surface of the roof. So the height of the curb has to come up. You bring the curb up, we now have a short ladder. We have an exposed section which doesn't have any finishes on it. So we've seen these things countless times. When we come out to take a look at your job, we're going to do our best to catch all these little minutia things that are going to get triggered. You can see on the right that through wall flashing in the block there, that's probably going to come up another level, and that's going to go right into where that conduit there. Who knows what that is, but now we have some MEP scope included in the work. Next slide, please. We're also aware that when we're mobilized out there, the town might have some opportunities to take care of some other non-roofing issues that are at the building, potentially at a price that you would not normally be able to get. What I've shown here is where these steel angles are, yep, right there, are embedded in the masonry. The steel started to corrode a bit, it's expanded, and it's popped out the mortar at the front. If it's really a small job, I mean, this is maybe half an hour's worth of work, but if you were to call a mason tomorrow and try to get them out there, good luck getting it done in the next month, they're going to charge you a full day's of time. Whereas if we're out there on the site and we're aware of these conditions, we might be able to find, a change order if there's room in the budget to take care of some of these small things while we're out there. Next slide, please. Okay, on to Briggs Corner. Next slide, please. So this roof appears to be a single structural deck type, corrugated steel. It appeared to be all from the same installation era. So we believe this roof was all installed at the same time. So it's different fundamentally from what we're looking at the headquarters. Next slide, please. There is a massive failure in the adhesive of the membrane. This is likely moisture that's working its way up from the inside of the building. There's no vapor barrier on the deck. It condensates on the underside of that black membrane that you see there. And that black membrane is glued to a paper facer on an insulation board. And that paper gets saturated, turns into a pulp, and then you're glued to pulp. And that's what happens. It will billow in the wind, and it's certainly on its way to failure. We're definitely talking about this at the right time. Next slide, please. One of the other evidence that we saw that there was some type of moisture vapor problems at the exterior. You can see where the block has started to spall, and the coating that's on the masonry is starting to peel off. This is likely because the masonry coating is not breathable enough, or it has been applied in too many layers and the vapor can't work its way out. It's getting trapped on the backside of the coating. You'll see that this is near the over the garage bay. The last picture that we were looking at was also over the garage bay. So the same source of moisture. I've got a hunch that it might be those the big trucks. I think the fire trucks might be when they bring it back into the garage and they stop, they're radiating heat and moisture. The doors are closed, and because it's winter time and all that moisture is just working its way out through the envelope. So we probably want to take a look at what's happening operationally inside the building in case there's something we're overlooking. We don't want to see our roof fail because they just need to leave the garage door open another 5 minutes and we can tell today. Next slide, please. So we think that one of the trickiest things to get done at this particular building is going to be the integration with the masonry. There are some real weird wonky details. It looks like such a straightforward flat square building, should be the simplest roof job in the world. And then there's these strange transitions where you have the block kind of floating out over the membrane. I haven't seen stuff like this before. So I don't have that solution right now, but this is going to be a big focus on our investigation. Next slide, please. Another great example, a little farther down, there's some sin is being hidden behind that piece of metal right there. We don't know what it is, but we need to know, because I think that's going to be kind of the make or break of these details. Next slide, please. Similar concerns here with drainage. You can see actually right here. This is the built-up roof that's flowed and dripped down into the drain. So again, we're very concerned that there is going to be some kind of obstruction that will keep your drainage from working. And the reason we're so concerned about drainage being operational is it could be a structural consideration for the building. So if you can imagine, 75, 100 feet away from that 4-inch pipe opening, there's a wad of solid asphalt, waterproof asphalt before it hits the main of the street. How long is it going to take for that 4-inch pipe, 100 feet of it to fill up in a good rain, and then it's backing up and you have a giant bathtub on your roof? There's been structural failures because of issues like this, which is why we focus so much on making sure that your drainage is functional. Next slide, please.
Quick question about that before you go on, please. So when you talk about the drainage, are we gonna have to be pulling stormwater permits to replace these roofs anyway?
No, you shouldn't.
I couldn't hear your question, Mike.
But if you went to upgrade that drainage,
Not upgrade.
you don't want to upgrade,
If well, I don't think we should do any work. We don't have to. It's just a matter of making sure it's operational. If it's not sized appropriately, we can pop in a scupper. We're supposed to have secondary drainage on the roofs as well. But if we knew that we had an obstructed drainage system that we can't correct, we can oversize our emergency drainage in anticipation of that being a problem.
So to replace the roof or as long as you're not re-engineering or redesigning the whole roof, that doesn't call for a permitting process?
No, it shouldn't require a permitting process for stormwater. What we do is investigate the existing piping. We'll certainly take a visual review of the interior, make sure there's no corrosion on it. Usually it's just a replacement of a section of pipe, but we might camera the drain to see if there's a clog or obstruction, or snake the drains. That usually solves the problem. But as Eric said, we'll do some drainage count, make sure that you have enough drainage to get off, enough water to get off the roof. But we can do it in a number of different ways. But it should be permitted already for that
Mike,
size roof.
just so you know, the city's stormwater ordinance only kicks in if there's a 2,500 square foot disturbance of the surface. So we would not be required to get a permit, stormwater permit for this project.
Yeah, we've never had to do it, pull a stormwater permit on a roofing project, even with replacing or adding new drainage. So, thank you. So our approach, to go back to what we were looking at earlier with all the different conditions they have on the roof, is we like to go out, we meet with you, we meet with the management team, the fire chiefs, and understand the problem of the building, the history of the building, so that we're not missing anything. We interview the staff, understand leak history, review any existing plans or documents that have on the buildings. We do an extensive survey and investigation of the roofs. We like to take lots of test cuts. We perform a structural review to make sure, of course, we're adding new insulation to meet the energy code, which increases the stow load on the roof. So we take a look at the existing structure. Oftentimes it doesn't really affect having to upgrade the roof, but if there's issues with the structure, we'll address those. And then, of course, we do a code analysis on the building to make sure that the design meets all code requirements. Next slide, please. Again, to get back to field investigation, this is one of the most important things that we do, is to investigate all the existing conditions. As I mentioned, we like to take lots of test cuts large test cuts to understand the underlying conditions, the composition of the roof. We take them at the field, the roof edges, at the parapet walls, at penetrations. And if we're there and we're seeing some anomalies in what we're finding in the cuts, then we go and take more and make sure we're catching them.
Can you confirm, I didn't see in your last slide, nor do I see on this one, reference to hazardous materials assessment?
Yeah, we'll include hazardous material and investigation, so that we'll bring out an environmental consultant to sample. Yes, that's correct. Next slide, please. As part of the process, as we go through our design, the important part of the project, of course, is cost. We utilize a professional cost estimator. It happens to be PMNC. We've been using them for 15 years. They're outstanding cost estimators. They're also project managers for owners, and they do a lot of work on existing buildings. Pricing a job for new construction is different than pricing a job for an existing replacement or repair or renovation. Other aspects in ensuring that we're meeting your budget is to, we have current bids, so we know the current market. So we do a lot of roofing projects, so we understand what the cost of it. And right now, the cost of roofing has gone up because of materials, just a shortage of materials and
What are you
supplies.
finding in terms of cost per square foot for
We're-
EPDM rubber?
Right now, we're probably looking for a public project that could run from $20 to $22 a foot. Maybe slightly higher.
I think in Corona time, it's probably gonna be another 10 or 15.
Well-
Or not 10 or 15, 10 or 15%.
Yeah, we recently bid one, so it was about that. So, I mean, it was around 15 to 16, but it's down. So,
How
of
realistic?
course, we
do
also,
you- Excuse me, how realistic do you think our $400,000 to $450,000 budget for construction is?
I mean, if it's based on what is roughly 15,000 square feet between the two buildings, you're gonna be right there. So that's about $26 a square foot. So if you're doing EPDM, you should be able to meet your budget.
Are there any circumstances in which you might recommend to an owner, subject to your investigation of the existing insulation? And if there is a vapor barrier, to reuse it?
More than likely would not recommend that. It looks like you've had, a lot of repairs on these roofs and.
In general, not these two roofs, but in general, do you ever recommend to owners that the insulation? be reused?
If they don't have, if they need to put on a new roof and they don't have the money to do full replacement, there are ways to verify whether the insulation is still functional. You can do it for testing. We'll do, again, lots of test cuts to verify there's no underlying damages. But we do tend to steer away from recommending
With your numerous.
leaving existing roofing. in
Okay,
place.
I get that.
Yeah.
With your numerous test cuts, do you believe that the need to do infrared testing is not required?
No, you won't need to do it, because we would, based on your budget, based on these conditions, I can tell you right now, we would recommend to replace all of the insulation with new. You lose our value, it's already damaged, and it just isn't worth it, because these roofs will last if you're looking
years.
at least 20 years and beyond, so.
Do you
What would we
foresee,
be looking at for a warranty for whatever you think you might be designing?
It can be anywhere from 20 to 30 years.
And do you have a recommendation as to whether we should be at the bottom or the top of that range?
It depends on cost. The longer the warranty, the more different types of detailing that has to go into a 30-year warranty, use of different membranes. So that'll drive the cost. So we'll have to dive into it, but typically we've been able to get 20 to 25-year warranties, at that $20 to $25.
I'm sorry, with the three different type of substrates that you've identified in your preliminary report, do you believe that there will be any challenges whatsoever with providing a minimum of 20-year warranty in the
Yes.
totality on the project?
Yes, the wood deck. The wood deck appears to be a plank wood deck. The manufacturers will not guarantee a wind uplift resistance for a plank wood deck because they don't have the same body of engineering data that plywood and OSB with engineered truss systems, corrugated steel, cast concrete. They all have a body of science behind it that, you know, the ASC will provide engineering numbers for. With wood planks, it depends on the species, the year harvested, where it was harvested, when you get, because wood plank is old stuff, it just doesn't have it. So the manufacturers will not guarantee a wind uplift speed. That is the one caveat. That's the only thing that's hanging on my radar. Everything else that you want, water tightness, certainly.
Would you, in that situation, would you overlay the existing wood with a wood substrate that would enable you to obtain the 20-year warranty?
Well, you'd get the 20-year warranty. It's just, it would have a caveat saying we can't guarantee that this isn't going to blow off if you have 125-mile-per-hour winds like we do everywhere else. That's it, because they just don't know what the fasteners are going into.
Would there be any
So one of the things
recommendation
is
that
there's
we-
different wind speeds that will be warranted. A standard warranty comes with a 55-mile-an-hour wind speed warranty. So if the roof fails if the roof fails at 56-mile-an-hour wind, recorded wind, the manufacturers won't cover it. But they do offer 70 mile, 75 mile, 90-mile-an-hour wind speeds, even 100 sometimes. But it's all based on enhancement of the securement of the roofing system.
Would you recommend the removal of the wood decking and replacing it?
Not unless there's some serious decay and deterioration.
Okay.
I don't think, if it's in good shape, I would not remove it.
Can't you just add plywood over to that? Fasten the plywood to it?
We could, but it's the same kind of theory where we're going to design and say, this is the uplift requirement. This is how you're going to achieve it through fastening. What they just can't guarantee is the performance of the historic wood structures. It's the same thing. They'll guarantee it down to the plywood. And it's one of these things like the only time this would come into play is where it's almost going to be a tornado and you're going to have bigger fish to fry because it's going to take the roof deck off with it. That's what they're concerned about. So they can't guarantee that the attachment of the wood deck to the structure is going to resist the prescribed wind uplift, but the system will. The main components.
Yeah, and then if you start adding more materials such as plywood, you're increasing the load on the roof and the structure may not be able to support it. So, but these are things that we'll flush out in the design.
The building can't support a couple of sheets of plywood, we're screwed.
Trust me, I've been on the edge of some of these projects where I can't add plywood.
Yeah, it's
Especially, I mean, probably not this building, but older structures, especially on slope roof where we like to add plywood as an underlayment for new shingles. Sometimes we just can't.
Well, we talk an awful lot about approach. This is a 24/7, 365 public safety building.
Yep.
If it doesn't survive a 90-mile-an-hour windstorm, how are we going to be first responders?
Right.
I believe that I would make a recommendation to the owner that they strongly consider that they need a 90-mile-an-hour basic wind speed because the building it's in a 90-mile-an-hour basic wind speed zone.
Right.
Why are we warranting something for less?
Right. Well, again, we'll flush out all those criteria with you and make those recommendations.
I've got a good hot tip for you guys who are in the public sector looking at these jobs at other buildings. Do not pay for a warranty over 73 miles per hour. Don't do it. Don't do it. They will charge you all sorts. The manufacturers they love these warranties where somebody comes in and says, hey, I need 135 miles per hour written on this warranty. And they'll say, fine, no problem. They put 135 miles per hour on it. They charge you an extra $3 or $4 a square foot. That's the easiest money they ever made because their language says the warranty is excluded if a hurricane occurs. A hurricane is 74 mile per hour winds and up. So your 90 mile per hour wind circumstance, so like you would not have warranty protections on that, but you do have insurance protections. That's what is happening to make sure that you don't have a hole in your insurance protection you get from the manufacturer right up to the hurricane. And then when you have a hurricane, that's your storm coverage from your master insurance policies. You don't pay for
Ed
those.
had a question, and I just note that we're about 4 minutes away. So Ed, did you have a question?
Well, you partially answered it. I'm assuming that fasteners means everything, not adhesives, but nails and screws and that sort of thing.
That's
But what kind of metal do you use? Or what kind of screws and nails do you use?
The manufacturers have standard fasteners that come with their systems.
Do you use stainless steel?
No, they're steel with a coating on it.
So could you use something better than that?
Well, then they're not gonna be covered under the manufacturer warranty. So you want to use their product. You have to, you really have to use. their
Even if
product.
it's inferior?
I'm sorry?
Even if it's inferior?
I wouldn't say it's inferior. I mean, they install a lot of roofing and they warn a lot of roofing and these are all any roofing system we would recommend would be a factory mutual approved roofing system, which is the industry standard for compliance. So these have all passed those tests.
How realistic do you think our schedule is to have this finished by Christmas?
Very realistic.
Okay, and what about project meetings? How often do you have them? And also, what presence would your firm have on the site during construction?
We would conduct weekly project meetings. And depending on the needs, we could be here, a few times a week. But generally at least once a week to conduct a meeting, do our site walkthrough, just to make sure everything's in conformance with our plans and specification.
And meeting minutes, you'd be
And
taking all
we take
meeting minutes and
minutes.
distributing them to all stakeholders.
Yep.
And the person or persons who would be conducting your weekly meetings and making your intermittent observations, would they be an engineer? Would they be a scientist? Would they be an RRC? Would they be an architect? What are their qualifications?
They'd be either an architect or a registered roof consultant or a structural engineer. But that's our team. Eric's here. He's a registered roof consultant. If he can't be here, I'll.
Okay, in your last minute and a half, anything you want to add?
Well, we just want to thank you for inviting us to interview with you. We know this is an important building, the most important buildings in town, as you mentioned. We worked on many fire stations. And we understand that coordination is critical, communication is critical. And to get everybody involved, we're part of the whole fire team.
Okay. Anybody have any other last minute questions? Thank you for coming down here. We are going to, when we finish the interviews tonight, probably take a vote as to who to recommend to the mayor that the city engage. And you can feel free to call Jeremy at the city tomorrow to see what happens.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Thank you.
I think Russo Bar is here. You're up, Russo Bar.
You should be.
You can feel free to take your mask off. We're
Thank you.
socially distant enough here.
Thank you.
And
And vaccinated, so.
it helps to understand what people are saying.
Definitely, I agree. So, you're up, go ahead. And we have a PowerPoint presentation here. I'd like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to you guys. You can, next, do we have control of you? Okay, next slide. Can we pass this in? Yeah. We have I brought a handout of the PowerPoint presentation just in case you want to take notes or anything.
Sure, thank you.
Yep. Should be enough.
Even though we know you, please introduce yourself. for the
Yep,
record.
sorry, yes. I'm Andrew Barr, Russo Barr Associates, and Rich Gorham, he's one of our project managers, who's done some work down here. Okay. We are Russo Barr, we are a architectural engineering firm that deals specifically in building envelope technology, building envelope consultants, roofs, windows, walls, this type of work. We, as I said, roofs, windows, parking garage, closet deck waterproofing, below grade waterproofing. It's all basically keeping air and water out of the building. Our services basically go all the way through from investigation, design, bidding, construction. We also do building envelope commissioning, mitigation support. As necessary. The team that we put together, the way we typically do things is Jim Russo and I, we're both owners. We're involved in every project. Typically, one of us is the project manager, one of us is quality control manager. In this situation, I will be the project manager on this one. Jim is involved as quality control manager. He is also, I am a registered civil engineer. Jim is a registered roof consultant. We also have a structural engineer involved, available to us, an architect, Dave Sacco, who is in the IT, will be involved. Mike DePietro is one of our senior technicians. Rich will be essentially assistant project manager on this. We've also carried peer consultants as a hazmat consultant, if need be. All right. As I said, this is the type of work we do all the time. All the work is in-house with the exception of hazmat consultant. We are approved as designers for MSBA plus commissioning agents for MSBA on building envelope. So the team is registered engineers, architects, registered roof consultants. I am MCPPO certified, as is Jim. And then with the support staff, we do all of our CAD work, all of our cost estimating in-house. Okay. Next slide. Just to sort of show the depth of experience we have on public sector projects. We've done over 420 buildings for 80 municipalities with over 30 million square feet of roof, totaling about $500 million in construction costs. Our work is mostly in Massachusetts, all the way from Cape Ann, Cape Cod, Pittsfield. Okay. We don't go out of state except pretty much full. If we do, it's with our private clients who want us to do a particular project. That's a list of the various towns and municipalities that we've done work for, which you can see is pretty extensive. Next slide. So just to show you the depth of some of our experiences for the town of Brookline, we did a survey of 80 buildings, 15 schools and 65 town buildings, and prioritized the condition of the roofs and walls on some of the buildings as well for them. And since then have done roof replacement projects for 12 buildings. Okay. The center picture right there is Brookline High School, which is a pretty big building. That one was actually roof and walls done in one summer at the same time. So it was a pretty crazy job. Next. Town of Andover, we've looked at 20 buildings, 10 schools and 10 town buildings, and which involved roof replacements ultimately for 10 of the buildings. On those, and it's ranges, some of them are historic, some of them are not. They're sort of all the way around. All right, next. Framingham, 14 buildings. And those are samples of some of the schools that we did. Framingham happens to like cold applied built up roofs. That's sort of their roof of choice. So we've done a lot of those for them and some PVC. Next. Belmont, similar thing, multiple buildings, including police and other buildings in addition to the school. Those are, they like PVC. Okay, go ahead. Pittsfield, we had done a lot of buildings, 22 buildings there, and then there was changes, some people. Now we're back there. We're doing a couple projects out in Pittsfield again, which is good. Slate, metal roofs, shingles, a little bit of everything. Canton, another similar situation, 7 buildings, actually 19, 7 of which we've done the roofs. Go ahead. And then we've done here, this is the high school, which was the first green repair project that was done. And as most of you know, we also just recently did the Bremen and Long Sutter roofs. Okay. To show you some of the fire department work we've done, we did 8 fire stations in the city of Boston with the roof projects. And those were mostly flat roofs, tapered insulation, new drains, repairs, and in all active fire stations. And next. Lowell, that's fire station, 3 fire stations in Lowell, which had slate as well as flat roofs. Next. This is Centerville on the, also, this is also a fire station. Oh, there's a sign right there. This was a ballasted EPDM that was replaced with an interior PVC system, had roof deck repairs, tapered insulation. Go ahead. This is a fire station out of Chicopee, brick building, with a gravel surface built up that was replaced with, once again, a PVC roof. Go ahead. Now, yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Rich talk a little bit because he was out here and looked at the buildings. So talk a little bit about your projects.
Okay, so the roofs that I've looked at here, as Andy said, I've looked at the central fire station and the, what's the name of it? I'm sorry.
Briggs Corner.
I'm thinking of something else, Briggs Corner State. Yeah. But this was the central one. It's just a front elevation view. You'll see the scupper boxes.
Rich, could you keep your voice up a little?
Oh, I'm
Us
sorry.
old people way on the other side of the room have trouble hearing.
Okay, maybe I'll just step down just a little bit further and switch places. So there are scupper boxes located at the perimeter of this building. One of the things we noticed, underground drainage. We did note on the ground level drainage, there appeared to be damage to the walls, which leads us to believe potential for backups in water and potential water damage as a result of water cutting off the roof. Next slide, please. And so these are overall pictures of the roof. You notice in the 2 smaller photos, top and bottom, there is dirt staining there. That's to us evidence of ponding water, something that's been there a while, much more than 24 hours. And then when you look to the left at the larger photo, you can see the lower roofs there, which are ballasted. And there does look to us like there is potential for ponding or puddling on that particular roof, as evidenced by the darker staining that you can see in some of that gravel surface. So that's typically a sign that there is puddling or ponding water in that area. Next slide, please. And then looking at that, there was a roof drain on the main roof there that was apparently repaired at one time or recently has been repaired. I believe that to be from water leakage.
Yeah, both buildings, there's actually evidence of repairs. I mean, they've been being sort of held together. You can tell. So.
And then the picture to the lower right there shows a vent pipe with, an antenna, there on that. I don't know if those are active or not, but that they obviously impact, the flashing details. So, and potentially the watertight integrity of the flashing details, all that stuff mounted to it. So it's always recommended you take that stuff off where possible, if it's not in use. Next slide, please. And then looking at this is these photos were taken from the ground, as you can see. In particular, when I was pointing out the front issue with the scupper box and the downspout, this condition picture is at the side of the building. You can see that there's looks like there's been some issues with water there.
Yeah, it looks like it's all,
Staining
looks
on
like
the
the
wall.
downspout's been hit as well, yeah. One of the things I just want to point out on these is that these are also to show that there are some issues, not necessarily roof related, but that are also affecting the water type of the building. The wood fascia is rotting up at the top left, the top right, there's some concrete block, which is obviously been getting wet and needs to be dealt with too. Yeah.
Next slide. Okay, so this is the Briggs Corner Station, front elevation. The drainage up there is by roof drains on both roofs. So we have a chance to take a look at that. The masonry work on this building, or the CMU block, looks a lot better on this building than it does on the headquarters building. Next slide,
Well, there
please.
is a lot of paint, the coatings are peeling off.
Yeah. Okay, so this picture here, you can see where the membrane has pulled away from the wall. It's EPDM shrinkage. It has delaminated. So once it pulls away like that, there's nothing really, as the membrane is getting worse and worse, and it's not adhered to the insulation, there's nothing really to hold that roof down. So it is a good time to be replacing that particular roof just because of that. And that's quite expensive.
Probably one good windstorm away from blowing off.
Right. And then in the lower picture there, you can just see the flue pipe, the hot pipe there. The rain collar is rusted around that. And the sealant is dried out and it's cracking. Next photo, please. Okay, and then in the upper left corner, just trying to remember where that particular photo was. I thought that was the upper roof. That drain is in pretty tough shape, as you can see from the photo. Looks like they've done repairs to it. It looks like it's also original to the building. So that's something that when you replace a roof, we typically like to see, that we recommend that you replace the drains as part of the roof project for the simple reason that you want the roof drains to last the length of time your new system is going to go for. So the lower photo here is on the lower roof, and that's just showing you how low the flash height there is at the wall. It's only an inch off the finished roof. The industry standard or recommended is 8 inches by the PVC and EPDM manufacturers. So that's just a very low condition there.
And it's also the membrane pulling away there, so it's providing a nice easy place for water to enter.
Correct.
So quick question, if the codes require you to build up with additional insulation and there's a limited space there, how do you solve that?
In that particular detail with the CMU block, one of the things we could do is we could infill, flush that out and go up onto the block at a higher level and cut potentially a regular sealant jointed wall. That's kind of one of the things I was thinking about when I was looking at the photos.
Yeah, one of the things that we need to find out on that, is that a cavity wall or is that just a single white block wall? If it's a single white block wall, you can't do through wall flashing because through wall is literally through all the way through the wall. So what you do with that situation is you've got to put a regular joint in and then make sure what the condition of the cores are. And that's when you look at that wall with the peeling paint up there. You look at that wall and you say, okay, if it's a single white CMU, which is the way like typical grocery stores or anything like that, you have to create a barrier on the outside. So you got to get a good coating on the wall. You can't rely on a cavity to drain in that situation.
So and as part of the scope of work, when we get into our field work, we look at the above roof line conditions as part of our scope of work, because we want to identify those types of issues up front. We don't want to just put something on the wall that we think is going to make sure it doesn't. Next photo. Oops, okay. I'll let Andy.
Yeah. So now I'm going to jump into what our project approach is for these types of projects. We start with a kickoff meeting where we get whatever documents you have, any previous studies, what the leak history is, any existing drawings of the building if they do exist. Many times they don't. And then we go right into our investigation phase. Oh, in the project commencement, one of the things, particularly in a situation like this with active fire stations, that's when we really start the discussion right away with what's the access, what's the situation for that, where can we we start thinking about where could contractors set up and all that type of situation as well. During the investigation phase, so we're going to look at the interior, we're going to look at the exterior, we're going to look at the existing leaks. We're going to do test cuts into the roof, potentially test cuts into the walls if necessary, if it's appropriate. We basically take a lot of pictures at that point in time too. And then we're going to review any applicable codes. We're going to look at the wind situation, what the R value is and what we need to go back with, all those types of things. And we're going to put together an existing condition report, which is going to tell you, here's the condition, this is what needs to be done, this is what it's going to cost at this point in time. And these are what our options are for a replacement or repair. That's sort of part of the design development as well. The design development just takes a little bit farther, but we have meetings with you at each point. That's where we're going to start putting together our typical details, scope of work, outline spec, and additional and new cost estimates each step of the way in case anything changes. Ultimately, we put together complete construction documents, all right, and which we would do at 95 and 100% or whatever we agree to, where we need to do those. In some cases, we go straight to 100, whichever way it works. We work closely with Jeremy on the bidding documents, putting it all together. We move on to bidding, and we assist with the bidding. We help with putting central register ad in, Carbide, the local paper. We attend a pre-bid meeting, which hopefully by the time this comes out, we will actually have pre-bid meetings on site. And then attend the bid opening, unless it's an electronic bid opening. If you want to do it electronically with bid docs or something like that, we're very comfortable doing that. That's something that has turned into be quite a time saver for everyone. We recommend who the low responsible bidder is, and that doesn't necessarily mean the low price, because if there's a situation where that low bidder we think is not qualified for some reason, we will tell you why. We do the reference checks and everything, so that we try to get if there is a reason to disqualify a contractor, we will tell you that we think that that's the case, and we have no issues doing that. And then once we move into construction, we have a pre-construction meeting. We review submittals, shop drawings, have site visits. I'll talk about that a little bit more moving ahead, some of the questions, and then ultimately go on to warranty. Something that I just want to touch on a little bit, where these are fire stations. As you can see, we've done a fair amount of fire stations. This past year, we during this whole sort of at the start of the pandemic and into it, we were working out in Southwood, pretty good sized fire station, very active. It was their only fire station, big shingle job and repointing. And we worked day to day. There was because they repointed the whole building, so they were over the entranceways. We made sure that the contractor and everyone understood that there was going to be someone was touching base with the contract, with the fire chief every single day, in case there were situations where if they had to pull trucks out because they needed to work in front of a door, they did that. And the job went very, very smoothly in that regard. And then the warranty phase, basically at prior to the end of a 1-year warranty or 2-year, whatever is in particular, will come out and do a final inspection there to make sure there's no warranty.
Andy,
issues.
we're going to be looking for at least a 20-year warranty. Do you see any impediments to us achieving that, especially at the main headquarters?
No, I mean, typically all the roof systems that we would specify have at least a 20-year warranty, full system warranty. So that's a standard. I mean, we design pretty much the standards that we always design to FM Global standards, whether it's FM Global insured or not. We always we specify to their standards. We always specify at least a 20-year full system warranty. Okay, and there are 30 years that are now available. There's pros and cons of whether it's worth those extra 10 years or not from a cost standpoint, but it's something to consider.
We have a budget in the $400,000 to $450,000 range. Are we realistic?
Yeah, the numbers is about 14,000 square feet, I think. Actually, can you switch to the next slide? I kind of jumped through these questions for you.
Oh, okay.
If you want.
No, please.
Yeah,
Go
we
right
addressed
through.
every one of the questions, so.
Go right through and then I can be quiet.
Well, yeah, I mean, jump in, when I'm telling you about it, please then ask other questions that are associated with it. But I want to make sure that we're very clear on all these things too, so, yeah, 20 years, okay, so, 20-year full system warranty, as I said, that is typically what we design to, okay? If there is a reason why a manufacturer thinks for some reason they can't offer that, we'll sit down with them and say why, and you know, this, when it's a complete removal and replacement, there's no reason why you can't get a full system warranty.
The minimum requirement on 20-year warranty is that you use a 60 mil minimum thick membrane.
Yeah, the 30-year basically it's a thicker
30
membrane.
Yeah, the 30-year requires an 80 mil thick
Right.
membrane if it's PVC.
And some enhancements, some.
And the system. But
Okay, that's the warranty. Next. Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's about 14,000 square feet. That works out to be around $32 a square foot. That's very doable. These are not, you know, I mean, the access to these buildings is pretty easy. They're not tall buildings. We don't see an issue with that. Next. And oh, just the other thing, just so you, I mean, to backing up to that, you don't need to. When I said that we do our own estimating in-house, our estimating is based upon our experience on similar projects, which we've done a lot of. Also keeping up with what's going on with the pricing, because we talk to manufacturers a lot and distributors. And frequently when there are estimates, when someone says, well, you know, we want you to get an outside estimator. We get an outside estimator and we do our own estimate, they do their estimate. Usually our numbers are very close, or they are totally missing something, you know, because they're not thinking, they're looking at a set of plans and they're going to their programs and they don't necessarily think of the logistics, the difficult logistics of the project. So we're confident with our estimate.
If I can jump in there and one question, on the high school project, we are hearing weekly of shortages, everything from plastic pipe to drywall to joint compound to you name it. Are we heading into a problem here?
Well, that's what that slide talks about. Yeah, there's shortages of everything right now. Raw materials, you know, wood. There's an issue right now. There's no glass fascias available for insulation, so you have to go with paper fascias, which is I mean, it's not bad, but it's you know, glass fascias were a newer technology. We're also hearing there's no high density insulation. It's just regular standard density insulation right now. And standard thicknesses only. So you got to work with those standard thicknesses. So you may end up having to have slightly more than 30 or that type of a situation. What we're doing right now is we're working with, for instance, the projects that were bid and are getting ready to go into construction. We're working with the contractors and the distributors that we know, making sure that they get their orders in as quickly as possible. And they don't, I mean, we've had one contractor and he sort of, you know, was in and out and when he pulled his order, he went to the end of the line. So we did some arm twisting to get the product. I mean, if you remember on Brennan and Wamsutta, we ran into an issue. The contractor couldn't find screws and shingles and sheet metal. And we worked with him to find all of those. So that's where our experience in the field and you know, in the industry really helps. But it is something we have to be aware of, and it's something we have to take into account in our design, so that we're trying to make sure that we specify things that are available. Yeah, next question. Yeah, and then you had asked what happens during the project if we find issues with the project, something that's not done properly. A couple of things that we do, basically, we always require a licensed construction supervisor non-working on the project. Okay, that's once you get to construction. And that guy works for the contractor, and that way his part of his job is to make sure that his guys do the job right. He's not out there swinging a hammer, or he's not supposed to be, and therefore not watching what's going on. And it gives everyone someone to go to a meeting. We specify mock-ups if there's any particularly difficult things, such as gutters and roof edges and things like that. So with those mock-ups, we establish the standard right at the beginning of the job. Here's the mock-up, this is what's acceptable, and this is what you gotta go to. So that if they're doing their work and suddenly what's going on the roof isn't what was approved in the mock-up, then, you know, that's a red flag right there. Site visits, we will, and this sort of goes to the next question too, but weekly site meetings is what we recommend. Particularly in when the construction season is crazy. And which, no, this is a fire station, so we're not restricted to those 8 weeks of summer school, summer slammers type situation, but still, everybody's busy, contractors are busy. So having weekly meetings is important to promptly identify any of the issues. We are, I think, as you know, from our other projects, if we need to come down here on a daily basis, practically, you know, within reason, we can do that. We are available to do that. And obviously, the last resort is, and hopefully it doesn't get to this, we will make a contractor remove and replace it. We will not approve requisitions if there's defective work, and if he's got to take it out, he's got to take it out.
So if I could do a follow-up.
Yeah.
So I think one of the biggest issue, that line or whatever, has been our roof. Yeah, you're aware, you've probably overseen the only successful roof job performed in Attleboro quite some time. But they almost all seem to fail, in my opinion, because of the flashing not being on correctly, the ceiling's not being pushed. So it's not the big value, the attention to detail of knowing why that flashing is critical in that area and why it has to conform to the building in a certain way. And we've heard from a couple of people about cutting into water like that really people don't want to do that anymore. Well, sometimes you have to do that, and it doesn't take away from the structural ability as long as it's done correctly. And so this was kind of my question, because like I said, our roofs have traditionally failed even when almost brand new schools because of the roof not being able to.
Well, you're 100% right that you can look at the field of the roof, and you know, even when you look at a 20-year warranty on a roof system, for instance, the rubber or the PVC is going to last far longer than 20 or 30 years. But it's the tie-ins to everything. It's the same, you know, when a building is built and they put windows in, the window's fine, the whole building is fine, but it's a tie-in between the two things. And that's all of those things. That's always where typically something goes wrong. And that's where our experience over the years, I mean, you know, a lot of times I'll go when we investigate a failure on a roof or a wall or something like that, I'll look at it and shake my head and say, I can't believe it, but I can believe it because I've seen lots of things like that. So it's paying attention to detail, and that's where getting the things proper. Some people will take standard manufacturers' details and say, okay, this is Sarnafil's detail, this is Carlisle's details, here you go. We draw specific details for all of the details, whether it's tie-ins, everything like that. And in many cases, they go beyond what the manufacturer says.
There's a redundancy,
Right.
There's a redundancy in almost all of our details.
So the
That simple
and the contractor will sit there and say, why do I have to do, like, they'll submit shop drawings, which are the standard manufacturer stuff, and they'll say, here, this is all, that's all I have to do. No, you have to do what's in the specification, in the drawing, not just what the manufacturer says.
And then the final step to that is doing that final punch list inspection at the end of the job. And when I get into that, I drill down very deep into those details that I consider very critical details. We look at everything, but those details that caused problems in the past, we look at those a little bit closer.
So we have about 4 minutes left.
Yep.
Are
And I
there
think
any highlights that you would like to hit in your last 4 minutes, and certainly any questions the commission may have?
I think one of the things that you had also asked about schedule. Schedule is doable. We're not afraid of the schedule. I think I touched base on how we approach the job. I think we have a very good working relationship with you guys, I think. When there are issues, I think we've shown to you that we react to those issues and we we'll try to come up with solutions that are, that work for everyone. You know, we work with contractors. We try to keep everyone happy because it is a team. Everything is a team. It has to be nowadays. That's the way things work. And, but most importantly, it's getting you a building that's going to last, roof that's going to last long, and that you aren't going to have issues with. And I think that I think that you're fairly comfortable with us. We'd like to continue working with you, obviously, and that's sort of it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from any commission members?
I have a question. Since you've done so many fire departments, is there anything that's unique to a fire department? You know, like schools have certain uniqueness.
Probably the one common thing that always comes up on fire stations when we're working on them is one, it's a 24-hour building.
Right.
And it's their building. They really feel that it's their building. And you have to take that into account. And usually the chief, if it's the headquarters, is intimately on a day-to-day basis involved in what's going on, and that's fine. And you know, that's the Southwick one that I was talking about. It was very important to him because they really, it's their home. We did a major $3.5 million renovation of Engine 50 in Boston, which is at the base of the Bunker Hill. It's a little historic two-door, two-bay fire station. And it started out as just a building envelope. And then in the middle of it, everything started happening with the carcinogens and firefighters. So they said, we got to do something. So it turned into an interior and exterior renovation. And it was the first fire station in the city of Boston that has 3 zones, hot, warm, and cold. The guys come in with totally separate HVAC systems. So the guys come in and they get changed and everything. But the point is that we had to work with them on probably that's the most unique thing about fire stations is, and it's different than police stations. I mean, that's their home, and you have to treat it that way. You have to understand that. So
and we're sensitive to the noise issues with that too.
Thank you.
Okay, Ed.
Yeah. Now, that whole construction phase of the job is about 7 weeks, according to your.
It's. I'm not sure exactly what the time frame was, but that's, yeah.
Well, my question is 7 visits, weekly visits, enough visits? And I saw in one of these that roofing is like a one-day job. There's so much happens in one day. How often do you see a need for more than weekly visits more often?
There are certain times of the job when, yes, there would be. And one of the things about Rich is that he lives down this way, and he only lives, half an hour.
40 to 45 minutes.
It's not long.
Yeah, not long for me.
But no, so I mean, so yes, there are certain times, particularly in the beginning of the job, when you're getting the procedures down with the contractor and what he's doing. The first 2 rips are the most important, because that's when you uncover certain things and they have to make sure that they're doing everything right. So yeah, I mean, there were some jobs that we have we have people down, 20 hours a week type of situation. I mean, we can do more. I mean, it depends upon sometimes it depends upon the contractor, who the contractor is too, because it can be that.
I'm gonna have to call time.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So you can certainly call Jeremy tomorrow.
Okay.
We probably will be taking a vote to recommend tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy, for keeping the time and sending me text messages.
No problem.
So do we have our 3rd candidate available remotely?
Yes, I believe
Yes.
Good evening. This is Ed DeSalvio from DeGiorgio Associates. Are we ready to begin our presentation?
I'll ask Jim, are we ready? He says yes.
Great, thank you. So let me just make sure that our full team's on here. Tom Ewing, are you on the line?
I'm here.
Okay, great. And John McGee? So we're waiting for one more team member to jump on. And there he is. John, could you unmute yourself, please?
Good evening.
Great, thank you. All right, great. And I'm going to turn my video on. Good evening. Thank you. If you're all set, we'd be happy to start off our presentation. My name is Ed DeSalvio with DeGiorgio Associates. We appreciate you meeting with us this evening remotely on the Zoom call. I'm the lead structural engineer at DeGiorgio's Boston office and also the project manager for this project. We have Tom Ewing on our team. Tom's a registered roof consultant. He's been in the business 40 years, specializes in all types of roof systems, roof replacement systems. He's an integral member of our team and will be on the project for the life through design and construction phase. John McGee is also in our Boston office. John is a retired firefighter, and he's our public safety consultant on all the fire stations and police stations that we work on. John went to the briefing session. Some of you may have met him during the walkthrough. Anything that comes up that involves the fire service, John would be able to handle, be it the 24/7 occupancy of the facilities. If there's odors getting into the facilities, upsetting the firefighters, John will be able to interact with the fire service and resolve any issues. So what I'd like to do, we have a brief PowerPoint presentation. And what I would like to do is share that with you.
Jim, you can enable him to share his screen.
And if you could let me know, can you happen to see it?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. All right. How about now?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I'm going to start off the presentation. Again, thank you for having us on the call this evening. The project is right up our alley with roof assessments and roof replacements, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. Just want to change the. Okay, so at DeGiorgio, we like to have a little bit of a philosophy on how we handle our projects. DeGiorgio, we're a 50-person firm in Boston. We're full service architectural and multidiscipline engineering in the Boston office. We're a creative and diverse bunch of folks. We're very flexible to meeting our clients' needs, meeting our clients' schedules and budgets, and making sure that the clients are getting the product that they desire, especially when we're using taxpayers' money to fund the projects. I'm a member of my building committee in my town, so I understand the importance of spending the funds wisely. Again, our firm profile, we're located in the Schraff Center in Boston. We have full service architecture, structural engineering, mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineering. We have a construction management group. We have a design build company in the office, which I'll touch on. We have in-house cost estimators. We actually have an in-house materials testing laboratory and construction inspectors, which we could offer on this project as well, as far as full-time resident engineering and full-time clerk of the work services during construction phase. We've been in the Boston market for 35 years. Our group's designed over 200 Massachusetts municipal facilities. We have a number of LEED accredited professionals. So we understand the importance of energy efficiency and maintenance-free designs, especially when it comes to an investment such as a roofing system. You want to make sure it lasts 20, 25, 30 years. And Tom will talk about the warranties and the materials as we get more into that. We base our relationships on repeat business. We do a lot of work for the same clients. We have long established relationships, and we bring to the city on this project one-stop shopping. We have one sub-consultant, which is Tom Ewing. The rest of the group is all in-house in Boston. So some of our differentiators, we have an experienced IIBC RRC, which is registered roof consultant on our team, which is Tom. Tom will be handling all the roof test cuts, the infrared scanning. We have in-house licensed Massachusetts asbestos specialists that'll be working with Tom up on the roof, doing the sampling and the testing. We understand you don't have existing drawings. Part of the field work will be measuring up the roof to create the actual as-built drawings to get all the details. We can, on a lot of projects, we have 3D scanning ability. Probably don't need that on these projects. They're fairly small buildings, but those images that you see are from some of the scans we've done. That's a 55,000 square foot school building that we did a major renovation on, including a roof replacement. And we used 3D scanning and drones to actually scan the building inside and out and create 2D drawings that were accurate to 1/8 of an inch. Our engineers and architects use green products, conserving energy both in manufacture of the project and during the construction. And we always look for the low and no maintenance materials. With our large bench strength, we know you have a aggressive schedule. We're able to start on the project immediately. I mentioned we have an in-house design, build, and construction management firm right in our office. So we'll have these real-world experts in addition to Tom Ewing that'll be doing peer reviews, constructability reviews. A professional cost estimator is a licensed contractor. When we bid our design build projects, we're working with actual trades, getting pricing on the project. So we have actual roofing contractors we do business with, and we would be asking them for pricing to put our construction cost estimates together. This is a Chapter 149 project, and we are experts in navigating that process. Although we're in Boston, we have very competitive fees in the market, typically at or below industry average, and we always work with the client's budget. We're very flexible with our multipliers and can work with any budget that a client has. And we're great listeners and collaborators. The project's all about helping the city of Attleboro, and that's what we intend to do. I'm just going to go through these couple slides quickly. I'll be happy to send you the PowerPoint later for reference. This just elaborates a little bit more on our in-house capabilities from on the architecture side, building envelope roof designs, all the traditional architectural designs, 3D modeling, lead, public presentations, structural, mechanical, HVAC, electrical, plumbing. So you don't have a lot of mechanical equipment on the roof, but you do have some vents. You have some rooftop vents, looks like some fan units, some vents, some pipes, some roof drains. So we have in-house staff that will join us out on the site visits to assess those items. Because in some instances with a roof replacement project, you're increasing the insulation thickness. So that means you have to move the flashings up, whatever existing items are up on the roof. So sometimes if you don't have enough space on a pipe, you might have to raise the pipe up, extend it up a little bit. I know you don't have any rooftop units, but if you had a rooftop unit with a curb, you might have to put a curb extender on. But we've got the expertise right in Boston that would be on the site with us looking at all your rooftop equipment as it's associated with the roof replacement project. Our construction management side, again, I'll just touch on it real quick. We do everything from pre-construction services, code reviews, constructability reviews, phase construction, value engineering, all the way through design build, building the projects with the trades and managing the projects during construction. We realize this is a design bid build project in Chapter 149, so it's not a design build. Your team on this project, in addition to myself, Tom Lamb, who couldn't join us this evening, is a lead architect and he's a lead accredited professional. Sean McKenna is one of our building envelope specialists. He's also a licensed contractor. Brian Noveline's the project director. He's also the regional manager for New England. He's a PE and he's MC PPO certified and also a licensed contractor. David Toll is our in-house cost estimator, also a licensed contractor. Brett Langolis is our in-house hazardous materials specialist. He's certified by the state of Massachusetts to sample and test any hazmat, including asbestos. John McGee, who you met, is our retired firefighter, lieutenant EMT, and he's our public safety consultant, works on all our police and fire station projects. And Tom Ewing from Ewing Associates is our RRC. We've teamed quite often with Tom on roof replacement projects, and you'll be hearing a little bit more from Tom in a few slides. I'm sure you read the proposal that we had submitted. It listed a lot of our roof replacement experience projects. This is essentially some of those jobs and a few more. We've worked throughout the state of Massachusetts, replacing roofs on all types of buildings from senior centers to schools. We've done work through the MSBA ARP program for roof replacement projects, courthouses, universities, and colleges, to name a few. This is one of Tom's projects. He's doing a roof replacement job in Springfield for the community college. It's a complete tear off with a new PVC self-adhered roofing membrane with new through wall flashings, drain bowls, and adjusting the roof pitch. This other project here, we recently replaced the roof on the Drake at Senior Center, a 9,000 square foot building. This roof happened to be asphalt shingles. It was more of a residential style building for the senior center. This recently was bid and construction was finished not too long ago. We ran into issues with gutters and downspouts and trim that we also replaced. And the construction came in under the estimated budget on this project. We also are just finishing up a major program in Lunenburg. They had an existing elementary school that we designed major renovations for, and included a 50,000 square foot EPDM roof replacement project. This project went through design development and cost estimating and is going to town meeting for additional funding. We also did inspections, building envelope inspections for the city of Boston on Long Island in Boston Harbor. They have 16 buildings out there. We did full building envelope assessments, including the roof assessment, recommendations for replacement, as well as the cost estimates to replace those roofs. This is a project that we were involved with for the city of Cambridge, for the MSBA through the ARP program. It's one of their schools. It was a complete EPDM roof replacement of a 16,000 square foot roof on the school. It included all the test cuts, hazmat for asbestos. We had to remove the parapet, extend the parapet, as I mentioned. When you add more insulation, these parapets in particular were too low. We had to build up the parapet to accommodate the new insulation thicknesses and the flashing requirements. This was another investigation we did for a client in Norton. It was a 214,000 square foot flat roof, EPDM ballasted roof system that was damaged by a solar contractor who put all the solar panels on the roof. So we had to go up there, investigate the damaged areas, do test cuts. We made recommendations for the repairs of the roof. They also damaged the metal roof deck when they installed the solar panels. So we helped this client out, evaluating the situation, the damages, and came up with the repair designs for them. So this next slide, which gets into our project approach, Tom Ewing will go through, and then he'll go through the next slide as well.
So basically, we want to know what you have. So we want to do a condition assessment, which is really through infrared scanning, if we can. For instance, a ballasted roof that has heavy stone on it, thick stone, heavy stone. You can't really do an infrared, but we like to do infrareds on roofs to tell us what areas are, and those are the areas of possible maybe deck degradation. We might have to replace sections of deck, so that gives us a clue where those areas are. So when we'll always go up and do a test cuts. And frankly, I like to do the test cuts. I get right down on my hands and knees and do them. And particularly at the roof edge to find out what kind of a condition we have at the existing nailers and how thick they are. Inspect the underside of these roof decks make sure that we're not missing any areas. There might be even electrical lines tied or screwed to the underside of the deck, which is really illegal, but we have to watch that out, be careful of that. If we're going to be putting screws to the deck to mechanically attach insulation. Drainage is probably the most important thing on a roof. We want to make sure the roofs drain and they drain properly. We don't want to have ponding water as much as, if we can, even despite the fact that some manufacturers will warranty the roof with ponded water. It's just not a good roofing practice to have ponded water. So we want to make sure the water gets off. And often that includes replacement of drains. Now, I noticed on your roofs, at least the one that I saw gravel, I think it's over the Briggs Depot, Briggs corner station. There's a gravel roof that has drain inserts. Well, those are illegal. You can't have those by the state of Massachusetts. So those would have to be removed. And actually, I would replace all the drain bowls that you have. And make sure the lines, any horizontals are insulated. And we want to make sure that we get accurate cost estimates and make sure the building code is being followed. For another instance is that you have some areas of, notice some low plumbing vents. Those would have to be extended because they got to be at least 18 to 24 inches above the finished roof surface. The next thing we'll do is we'll develop the plans. Oftentimes we try to get the original plans. If we can't get them, then we'll just have to field measure or go to the 3D scanning. It's important to get accurate measurements as of the roof that you have right now. And continue on. If you want to take the bidding services, that's more in your area. Ed?
Yeah, I'll take that, Tom. Thank you. So for the bidding services, we would assist the town with writing the advertisements, getting into Carbide, get it in the central register. It also should be posted on a local newspaper. We'll lead the pre-bid meeting. We typically will issue an addenda after the pre-bid meeting to answer any questions that came up during the pre-bid meeting. Any RFIs that come in, we'll also issue addenda. If need be, we can issue sketch clarifications depending on the questions. We'll also attend the bid openings. This is likely just a single filed sub-bid project on the roofing side. So that there's likely just to be one sub bid, but if for some reason it ends up being involving a GC, we would attend both bid openings, the filed sub bid and the GC bid opening. We would research the apparent low bidders through the DCAM website and make a recommendation for award for the lowest and responsible bidder to the town. And then the construction admin phase, we would lead the pre-construction meeting. We would provide the submittal reviews, RFI reviews, review the requisitions for payment, sign off on the recs. We would provide the on-site field observations. I know those are some questions will be asked about the frequency of those. We'll perform the substantial and final completion punch outs, punch lists, and obtain the closeout documents, including the warranty paperwork, which is very important to get at the end of a roofing project. We'll also prepare any construction control affidavits if they're required by the building inspector to provide at the end of the project. So next slide, Tom was going to talk about material selection and such.
Well, one of the key things that we want to check out on roofing is you want to select materials that have a good performance record. In other words, we don't want to use something that hasn't been out there for at least 5 years and preferably 10 years. This is really critical because oftentimes manufacturers experiment with the owners on new products. There's a driving force to get products to market. And there are some manufacturers that take their time doing it to make sure it's correct. And there's others that want to rush the process with untested materials. And unfortunately, the owner is left as the guinea pig. So we want to avoid that. The other key thing that we want to make sure is that we get materials that are going to last, are going to be durable. and durable to not only the weather, but durable to foot traffic and whatever needs that you might have. So that's very important. And at the same time, trying to keep the building cooler, recycling and all that kind of stuff. One of the problems that you have with fire stations is that we have people in the building 24 hours a day. So we got to be concerned about adhesives and making sure that we use the correct adhesives that won't have an odor to it. And this gets into a problem when you start applying materials in November and December or the winter months, where you have to go to a solvent-based, sometimes adhesives. So we want to make sure that we use adhesives that do not have those type of odors. It's bad enough to have the re-roof project going on in the midst of an operation underneath. It's even worse when the whole thing smells like airplane glue. So we don't want to have that. The key thing, I think, is in roofing is inspection and making sure that we have proper observation of the roof. I often are there a lot more frequently than I say I'm going to be, only because I like to be. And I got a couple fire stations in not Fall River, but in New Bedford that we've done and are doing currently. And so we're in your area quite a bit. And I think that we can certainly be involved in your project to a higher degree than I would normally be. And as I say, that one of the ways you can get, that we have to decide what we want to use is you have to communicate to us what you're going to do on the roof. Some roofs are very slippery. Some roofs we can increase the thickness. Some roofs we can make less slippery. Some roofs we could not have non-slip at all, not slippery at all. And all of this depends on the warranties. You got warranties anywhere from 15 to 30 years, depending on a variety of installation requirements. Well, we have to, insulate the building to at least R30, according to our code right now. But oftentimes I like to go a little more than that. And taking in regard the idea of thermal bridging and so forth. So it's important that we select the right materials, have good specifications, have good follow-up inspection on that roof, and then continue to have good materials. So Ed, you have it now, Ed.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. So wrapping up our presentation, some of our key qualifications is our extensive experience with roof replacement projects and repair projects in Massachusetts. We're able to accommodate the aggressive schedule that the city had in the RFP. We're really a one-stop shop, as I mentioned before. We don't have a lot of sub-consultants. If we need a mechanical engineer up on the roof, we can get him up on the roof. He's right in our Boston office. We dedicate our resources to the project. We don't do a bait and switch. The folks you see in the interview and we listed as the key team members will be the people working on the job. We don't turn the project over to entry-level staff after winning a project. We have our registered roof consultant on the team. We're very cost sensitive to projects, as Tom had mentioned. And we understand the importance of the public and stakeholder buy-in, as many of us sit on the boards in our own town and know the importance of spending taxpayer money wisely. So with that, we thank you. The next slide, we just put the list of questions on there just to make it a little convenient to the viewers. But feel free, we appreciate you listening to our presentation, and we're happy to answer questions. I'll kind of direct the questions to the design team.
Okay, so I guess the first question is, we have a construction estimate that we did in-house for somewhere in the range of 400 to 450. Is that a realistic number?
You want to take that, Tom?
Yes, I think it is. Basically, I think just from the raw roof replacement general cost right now. It's about, to do what the square footage you have on the different buildings would be about 340,000 or so, but then you got drain replacements, you got, if we have to raise through wall flashings, if we run into asbestos. So I think the $400,000 budget would be probably realistic. So you have, I think that's a good estimate. Realistic estimate.
What about our time frame that we want this done before the snow flies, before Christmas? How is that?
On the design side, we can certainly accommodate that. It means a quick selection and getting the contract in place very quickly. Once the contract's in place, I think you saw from our schedule in the proposal that we were able to meet your design schedule. I think, Tom, if you could comment on the construction schedule aspects regarding material availabilities these days.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I was just talking to a supplier yesterday about a job, and he's saying if you order the materials now, you'll get the installation in July. So that right now we have a shortage of not only raw materials from manufacturers, although one manufacturer doesn't have a problem yet, but insulation is a problem. But what they're forecasting is that after July, it's going to ease up a bit. So it should be getting better after July. So this is all based on the COVID and the plants shut down before and getting employees back to work, and all of a sudden the sudden demand for for projects getting started. So right now, I'll be honest with you, it's a problem. Maybe not so much for this on a smaller size job like this, but it's going to take at least probably a month to get insulation, if not 2 months. So the sooner the better.
Yeah, the sooner we get it out to bid, the better.
Okay. Commission members, any questions? Okay, well, thank you for participating tonight. We probably will be taking a vote to recommend to the mayor after we finish the one more interview. So if you would like to call Jeremy tomorrow, you can probably find out what we did later on tonight.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Would it be of any benefit for us to send Jeremy the PowerPoint for reference for the committee?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, please email that to Jeremy if that's the appropriate way to get it to him.
Great, we'll do that.
It helps with, keeping accurate records in case the public, wants to look at what we did in our deliberations.
Of course, of course. Well, thank you again. If any questions come up, feel free to reach out to us. Jeremy has my contact info, and we really appreciate you taking the time tonight to meet with us and hear our presentation.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Perfect. Come on in. Yeah, it's been a long day. You can feel free to take your mask off. We're socially distanced enough here. Please introduce yourself, make your presentation. We're anxious to hear from you. And you can either sit or stand, whatever you feel most comfortable making your presentation. Please, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You have a stand-up desk?
No, I don't.
However, he might put in for one.
On this,
Yeah.
I'll just stand up and get started.
Sure.
Yeah, that way everybody can. Yes, everybody's got.
Go.
So, all right, well, I guess I'm get started. Well, good evening. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity for us to come out here tonight and actually be able to be in front of people, which is kind of very nice. You know, change of pace from this past year.
This is
So,
our first in-person meeting in more than a year.
We've done a lot of these on Zoom and stuff, and there's a lot to be lost, you know, when you're not there in person. So it's really nice to have this opportunity. So we're RGB Architects. I'm Jason Yakabuchi. I'm the president of RGB, and this is John Racine. He's the vice president of RGB. We're a 28-person firm located in Providence. We've been around since 1946, so that puts us at 75 years. We've been here for quite a while. We've worked in many communities in and around Rhode Island and Massachusetts, including Attleboro. We've done a number of projects for the town in the past. We are involved in many different markets, and forensics is being one of our specialties, which you know, brings us into a lot of what we'll be talking to tonight. So, John, if you want to take a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, we've essentially almost all of our projects are involved roofing. You know, that's basically why we're here. We have a lot of strategies in how I think we can approach this particular project. I know as all municipal projects, funding is always an issue. How do we stay within budget? And we have a lot of experience in doing so. And we could touch on some of those. We also brought some samples that we'll bring around to kind of give you all kind of something to feel like what types of membrane roofs are out there. Some of the advantages, disadvantages, we get into that at least. But at least you'll have an understanding of what you're purchasing for almost $500,000, right? So that would be important. But we can continue with some of the qualifications. You know, we're here for a reason. We'll get in on some of those high points, and then we'll hit on some of the projects that we've done that are similar, particularly roof projects.
Yep. So, you know, as John alluded to, we've done a lot of roofs over the years. We have some examples of some projects that we've done. We're involved in roofs, be it either renovations or repairs or brand new buildings. We also, like as I had mentioned earlier, we bring a lot of experience in terms of forensics. We are hired a lot for that when buildings have problems and issues. And that leads us to having a very deep knowledge of the materials and systems and how they work to be able to apply that for when we're, you know, bringing in a new project. So if you want to move along a little bit further down, those are just some examples of, we should be able to get into some examples of some of our projects here. We can show, there we go, project experience. We have a number of municipal projects throughout and private projects, everything from high-rise structures like Beneficent House. We've got municipal like Brockton Public Schools. We do a lot for the Rhode Island school departments. We do many of their CapEx work. I think in this past year, we've been in 15 different municipalities, and a lot of them have had roof repair work on their schools. Some of them large, some of them small. We've worked with Narragansett Bay Commission, which is kind of a quasi. So we've covered it. We've covered quite a few areas. Want to
Next slide. Here's an example, Newport City Hall. We had done an extensive renovation on this. This brought into both historic, we had an elevator on it, but we also did a lot of roof repair on this building. And what was unique with this was being a historic building, the stone versus a lot of times it's the standard brick that you find on a lot of buildings and stuff. We had to get into a lot of special detailing on this project. Next. Want to go down, John?
Yep, sure. The Providence City Hall is very similar to the Newport City Hall, where we had to get into a lot of historic accuracy and how do we deal with a roof that not only is it 5 stories up in the middle of an urban environment, but how do we deal with that in a correct, historically correct manner? Where we're very successful with this. We did use one of these membrane, I think it was an EPDM membrane roof system, and tied it into concrete flashing.
When was this done?
This one was done in, I think, early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Maybe, yeah.
This one's been a little while.
It's been a little while.
Yeah, oh no, sorry, 2012. Pawtucket City Hall, that was one you worked on.
Yes, Pawtucket City Hall had, actually it still has it. There was a number of cracks and things of that nature that were created because of the building not being heated, not being occupied. And then it in turn deteriorated a lot of the roof membrane that was on it. So we did a forensic study, told the city what they needed to do, and we have yet to see it happen. But at least we did a study, and a lot of forensics was involved in an interesting building like that.
Town of North Smithfield. This was also a replacement on a building that had more than one type of roof. This had a metal copper roof on it, as well as flat roof. And this was, I believe, this one was replaced with a built-up roof on this particular project. Slater Park Carousel. This one here, as you can see, this was an asphalt shingle roof, but there was a small section off the back that had a little bit of flat roof, but that has that one was an example of multiple roof types. I mean, we deal with any type of roof. This is an example for asphalt shingles, and it was a restoration. Bones Theater, again, this was a historic project, very extremely deteriorated building that we had to go in, do a lot of extensive work on it, and it had kind of a unique deck. It was a high cinder composition concrete. So it required some unique fastening to be able to get this roof on and also deal with the historic detailing along the top of the building. This one here, we won an award on a historic restoration for this project.
Yep, I can. So this is for Roger Williams Park in Providence. There was a fire in the existing facility. We had to gut the facility. We put it, this had a combination of asphalt and metal roofing. And I know we're talking primarily flat roofs, but we want to show you the breadth of types of roofs that we're familiar with. And then we'll also get into some of the flat roofs to give you some strategies. But this was interesting. We had to essentially replicate what was there. And then on the new structure, we also provided a new metal system. That one of the interesting parts of this was putting the two buildings together and maintaining. I know one of the questions that will be brought up is how do we maintain warranties and how do we maintain weather tightness and things of that nature. We're able to do that here with multiple different types of systems under a very similar level of warranty. They both had 30-year warranties, and it has to do with the products that we selected, and the systems and how we specify them. We'll get into that a little bit further. I know we're going to be running out of time, shortly. So next, please.
Barry and Simpson Halls. These are down at down in the Pastore complex in Cranston. This was an extensive exterior renovation to these buildings, and this was a combination of asphalt, slate, and flat roofs on these buildings. I believe if I remember correctly, that was about almost 60,000 square feet of roof on those buildings.
Yep.
Narragansett Bay Commission, this one we're working on right now, currently. This was, again, another exterior restoration on their main office building at Fields Point facility. And this one here had a combination of standing seam metal roof that we were replacing asphalt shingles and EPDM roof in a number of locations, including a pit that sunk 12 feet down with mechanical equipment in it. So we were able to bring the roofing membrane up, tie it into the standing seam metal roof and all the rest of that on this one. This one's ongoing right now. They're finishing the top of the 4th floor of the building roof right now. We ended up getting into some additional EFIS on it. So a little bit more detailing, but that's an ongoing one currently. And a few more pictures of it. You can see from there on the aerial, you can see where there's a recess there, flat roofs, sloped roofs, full combination. This is an example of one of the projects for the town, the Attleboro DPW building that we had done a few years ago.
So that ties into some of the bid laws and bid requirements in Massachusetts. I know we've been showing a lot of Rhode Island, but we do an extensive amount of work in Massachusetts. Again, case in point was the DPW garage that was bid under Chapter 149. All the filed sub-bids process, everything was, we went through that process and we're able to complete the specs that are required to do so. We do know the requirements under those regulations. So.
And we also do a lot of work with the House Doctor program.
We do
as well. So a lot of housing authorities and stuff, we do get into a lot of roof repairs and renovations on those. We just finished Shrewsbury. We did some roofs for Shrewsbury.
Yes.
Yeah, laborers.
You can
Yeah.
go, there's a couple other ones that are rather show.
Yeah, Tiverton School District, we've done roofs on, I think, all of their schools to this point in time. We've replaced all of their roofs over a number of years in various buildings. Another roof replacement job, and this was also where we got into having to specialty detailing on another, again, historic building, tying in new roofing into existing masonry conditions and stuff.
This is the Neshoba Valley. This has some of the strategies that I think would work great for your project. We replaced about 70,000 square feet, and it had about 30,000 square feet of photovoltaics in that area. So we had to pull those off. We removed 11 or 12 pieces of equipment that we pulled off. And so it was a full membrane roof, but we were able to save the town or the school district, I think about $75,000 on insulation. So we had the roof system scans. It was the IR, infrared scanning system. We were able to identify where the insulation might be wet, where there was a previous leak, and you isolate the amount of insulation that gets replaced. The rest of the insulation ultimately can stay. So you gain the R value of the additional, of the existing insulation when you add the new insulation on top of it. And you get to save the demolition cost and disposal cost. So getting more into your project, we feel that this is certainly something that you want to take a look at and consider as you go through. I think there's significant savings there.
Yeah, we would want to do that in combination with the roof core, as well as then, of course, testing for any type of ACMs or anything like that. We would do that as a comprehensive right off the bat. And then that would give us the information needed to be able to help ensure that we can map the most efficient way to put the roof together.
Correct. And this was bid under Chapter 149 as well. And we went through the SBA process and the DCAM process. So certainly familiar with that.
So that's a list of some of the projects that we have. We also bring to the table, we have a separate OPM division where we have individuals in-house that bring some extensive construction experience. namely one of the head of our OPM division who we had listed in here, Mark Ashley. Mark brings 40 years of construction experience in the field. And that is brought to all of our projects in terms of quality control and review. So, we bring that constructability component as well to our past experience with doing roofs and any other type of construction. So this is just a list of the personnel that we would have on this. Be myself as the lead principal, John is the project manager. We have Fred Love. If we were to scroll down through these, it would be individual qualifications for each person. Fred Love, who's our historic architect, who brings extensive knowledge of detailing and stuff, especially when it comes to masonry and repairs on historic or older buildings that have more of a quote unquote archaic construction and how to best handle those. And then Mark Hashaway would be our lead field person during the construction administration portion of the project. So that would be the person in the field staying on top of the construction process. And then quality control would be Dave DeQuattro, providing that additional set of eyes from his experience. We always make sure that we have peer review.
Which one of your team members is an RRC?
Oh, that's that's Frank Simeon DeSimone. And then we have listed here, should we need structural engineering, we have Pretzer, CA Pretzer, hazardous materials for testing with CDW, and then MEP, FP, should we need it, would be building engineering resources, BER. So we would want to make sure that things like we would assess any equipment that would be on the roof, provide any recommendations at that point on whether or not, if we pull any of that off, would that potentially have some adverse effects to that equipment, aged equipment and stuff, to take them off and put them back on, some things that don't stop back up. Those are the types of things that we would want to make sure that, we would review in the initial field survey process. So that's a listing of everybody on our team that would be part of this project. And then those are the individual bios for all of us. So I think that pretty much covers who we are.
We have a budget of 400 to 450 that we've estimated. Does that seem reasonable?
Well, I don't know if you want to field that one.
Go ahead, you can start.
I'll throw myself under the bus on this one. I think we've had noticed building products in general, especially things that products that have resins that are included in it. Wood products, some metal products are starting to increase. We feel that $23 a square foot or $24 a square foot is kind of where you're at for replacement. Full replacement would be a challenge, but I think it's doable. I think if we use some of the strategies of trying to save what we can save, if we can use the existing curbs, if we can use some of the existing insulation and use that to our advantage, then I think you would be in the ballpark. But it would have to happen pretty soon because we know that the product demand out in the field has really increased. And it's really hard to get products in some locations and some types. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And our timeline is to have this finished by Christmas. If that seems doable.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see any issues with having that timeline doable.
Yeah, funding and everything is in place, I suspect. Funding is in place.
I still couldn't hear you.
Funding is in place.
Project funding?
Funding's in
Project
place.
Funding in place.
Yeah, Jeremy takes care of funding. We don't have to.
So that's number one. We want to make sure that you have the funding. And then, yeah, on our end, getting it set, putting it out to bid, you know, doing the sub bids and things of that nature. I think you have time. And you said in December. Obviously, we want that stuff to be in the warmer weather if possible.
Yeah, well, I mean, what we're really hoping was not to go through another winter of damage, because the projects, every winter you go through, the more the project costs the next summer.
Sure.
Yep.
Right. But what you will be battling against are the summer slammers for school. Schools in general, really do take a lot of any capital improvement plan or any capital improvement happens during that time. Roofs, doors, and windows tend to be a popular item to take care of during that time. So I think if we shoot for try to get something in the summer, then the roofers are excited between September and November to get it done. I think that's a good slot. Probably get your best price at that point.
Yeah, that would be a good target point. Plus weather-wise, it's optimum.
It's
Temperature-wise, it's usually drier at that point, so that's really kind of a target.
Let's talk about warranty for our buildings that have multiple different roof structures. Do you foresee any challenges with obtaining a 20-year warranty for all of our roofs?
I think the structure isn't necessarily, it's been my experience, and Jay, you may have a different experience.
Yeah, no,
The structure,
as long as the structure is solid and sound underneath, we haven't had any real issues with being able to maintain a 20-year warranty. It'll be depending on how you detail and the specifics that you select for the products. You know, one of the things that we always want to make sure of, we try to target towards is depending on whatever product it be it EPDM, be it TPO or PVC, is that you specify the materials to be single source as much as possible. And when you single source from a particular manufacturer, so we may put in there that, you know, it could be Firestone, Carlisle, any of the others that are out there, Johns Manville, whatever it might be. A lot of times what will happen is you put in for a 20-year warranty, you follow their very specific procedures, which we will put into the specifications in terms of having the manufacturer's representative come out, inspect the deck first before any work goes in. They'll inspect the products when it comes on site, and they will inspect the work as it goes through. And then at the very end, they will do a final review of the contractor's installation, and they'll sign off. And then a lot of times we'll get you an additional warranty in terms of either time on top of the standard. You can sometimes get to 25 or 30 years on that, or you can also get additional labor warranty on it. So most of the time the repair labor is it starts run out. You might get the first 2 years that they'll pay for, and then after that it's materials only. It's prorated. They'll extend that out. You might get 5 years out of it, and that gets worked out with the particular manufacturer. Each one has a little bit different thing. So those are one of the items that we would look towards, and we do generally always go for to make sure that we get the highest quality of roof down and best warranty. And when you have that, you've got the documentation also in place from the manufacturer, as well as just the contractor.
Okay, any other questions from any commission member? Ed?
Do you know approximately how long the roofs that are presently on the fire stations have been in place?
I don't know. Looking at
the membrane roof looked relatively new.
Yeah, it looked like there was one section that was a little newer, but it looked like there was a section that had some issues in terms of probably some installation or some deck issues underneath it. We don't know the exact age of the roofs.
Bring us on board, I guarantee we'll tell you how long it is.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we can certainly do this.
We get up on there and really do an assessment and have a pretty decent idea.
Okay, I think we're at our 25 minute, or 30, but whatever our mark was. But, in any event, if there are no other questions, we want to thank you for coming in tonight. And enjoyed having an in-person presentation for you and others. If you, we're going to deliberate after this, so if you call Jeremy tomorrow, you probably can find out the results of our deliberations. We don't actually hire anyone, we just make a recommendation to the mayor. However, he is consistently taken over. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, you too.
Night.
Good night.
Might be looking for a facility.
We haven't fun yet?
More than anyone should be able to have in a day, George.
Good. It's good to see you in person.
We'll just wait a minute for Mike to come back before we begin our deliberations. What I thought we would do would be ask our consultant, Mark, to share some thoughts. And then we'll question you.
Are the deliberations also filmed, or does that go?
Yeah, no, it's a public meeting. You know that.
Checking.
Has it been that long since you left us?
Unless we go into executive session.
Yeah, but we
Doesn't
can't,
qualify, does
we
it?
can't do that.
You can't?
No, not for this kind of deliberation.
Okay.
So,
We've done it in the past, but not, you're right, not for the,
not for
no, you're right.
this kind of voting. So obviously, we're going to ask everybody to rank 1 to 4. And I have a space here to make some notes. I'm sure Jeremy will keep the official tally.
Of course.
Just as a preview, based on what happened tonight, I've changed my mind on some things. So it's be interesting to see where you all come out.
What about the fees that they charge?
We cannot do this on a fee basis. We have to do it on a quality basis and then negotiate a fee with whoever finishes first. If we are unable to negotiate an acceptable fee with the first place finisher, we are allowed to go to the second place finisher or third or fourth. As much as the cost would be an important factor to most of us, Massachusetts law just does not allow that.
I don't think it's the only factor, but should be part of the factor.
I agree with you, but we have to do what we have to do.
Politicians that are much smarter than us have decided that.
Well, they have more control than we do, Jerry, anyway. Jim, we're in recess now? Okay.
It's the man of the hour.
You got the whole city waiting for you.
All right.
That call I had to answer, I'm sorry. That was.
So let's go back into.
Oh, that's right. I forget you
into
have a job.
session. Mark, you're a consultant. Do you have any thoughts you want to share with us?
Yes, thank you. So I took notes, copious notes, utilizing the comparative evaluation criteria that was listed within the RFQ. I thought that, and I'll just go in order of presentation. I thought that CBI with their RRC, Eric Wooden and Arnold Skalski, imparted a lot of information that was specific to our particular project. It was extraordinarily technical or very technical, and it contained a lot of detailed roof information, which was not unexpected because of the amount of time and energy that they put into their RFQ response, where they had done that preliminary evaluation. I thought their ideas on the drainage system investigations, the observations about reglet flashings, curb heights, insulation, the warranty and the basic wind speed, that was new information to me, and I've done hundreds of roofing projects. So that was great. Yeah, I thought it interesting that they indicated that it was unnecessary to do the infrared, although several of the other respondents had. With regard to Russo Bar, I saw them reading their PowerPoint. I saw them talking a lot about other projects and past projects. There was a tremendous amount of boilerplate within their RFQ response and in their presentation this evening. Their presentation was not as detailed as CBI, using a comparative evaluation criteria. I thought it was good of them to address in their PowerPoint the answers to the questions that the city had provided. I was disappointed that they didn't offer third-party estimating services, but that they were doing it in-house. And I thought that their presentation was strong on construction administration, but perhaps not as strong as CBI's. There was and I don't know how the city feels about, or this commission feels about, the appeal to past relationships and past projects, but I thought it was worth noting. DAI, I was not as impressed with Tom Ewing as their RRC as I was with CBI's. Their one-stop shopping, as they called it, their differentiators with their design build and some of the other things. I just don't know, but for me, I don't know whether or not the city finds that one-stop shopping as an advantage or a disadvantage or negligible or having no advantage. There was a lot of talk about boilerplate and other projects, but again, not as much as yours. They did make a good comment about the infrared testing, it letting them know where to look for the degradation of deck. I think CBI didn't touch on that, except they were going to do a lot more openings. And finally, I thought RGB probably had the least experience with specific roof projects. Their past experience and focus, for instance, I did 3 years at Providence City Hall after my last projects with the city here. I was engaged for 3 years at Providence City Hall, and I know that building leaks like a sieve. So that's why I asked what year they replaced the roof, and they weren't sure if it was early 2000s or 2012. But I know that if you were to call them, they're having a tremendous number of problems and are currently investigating with another building envelope specialist firm to resolve that issue. They didn't bring an RRC. They really didn't talk about your project. I didn't get the sense that they really knew or had been on the roofs of your buildings. I do know because I led the walkthrough that neither of those two gentlemen were there. And so I thought that their understanding of your particular project was the weakest on a comparative evaluation criteria. So I thank you for your time.
Excellent summary. Well, I'm looking in this direction. So Mike, what do you think?
So, yeah, I think he touched upon a lot of great aspects of all presentations, what we've said. You know, I do want to express, like I expressed before, I realize the mayor has made a decision, but I still want to express my concerns about the timing of this project with the way the construction material right now is just too fluffy. But that is what it is. But I just think it's something we really got to worry about moving forward. Keep a close eye on that. We shouldn't be caught down. One gentleman, I believe, said from the Admiral that they were hoping that this was going to be 6 months. There was going to be some type of stabilization. Hopefully that's true. But it's still a huge concern of mine. And I'm not saying that these roofs do not have to be repaired. But I just think the timing is absolutely terrible. In listening to all the candidates, my grading, I think any one of them could do the project. There's no doubt about that. But I did like the part where Russo Bar, where they have done successful roofs down about before. And I liked how they answered my question. It is about attention to detail when it comes to roofing. The big sheets, the big blind, that stuff is really never a problem until you're around a set point or fixture. That's where your leaking occurs. So, and when they touched upon, there's 2 ways to put a roof on. There's numerous ways, but especially with the warranty, number one, the manufacturer is going to tell you, their recommendation of how this thing's all going to be done. But there also has to be somebody in the field that says that no, the best way to do that is going beyond what they asked for. And they touched upon that, and I believe that's very true in these circumstances. So I had Russo Bar's presentation as number 1 in my list of criteria for writing it down. And I think that, again, I hate to use somebody all the time for every project that we have, but I think their track record speaks for itself, and I think they gave a better presentation than everybody else tonight.
And who did you have as number 2?
I have Russo Bar number 1. I have CBI as right behind them, number 2. Jurial number 3, and I totally agree with RGB number 4, and especially as somebody that's the overseer of the new DPW complex. I can tell you we got problems too. So that was a very bad example for them to use with me sitting here. We've had multiple roof leaks, and it always comes down to making numerous phone calls try to get somebody to go and look at a building that's only 4 years old. So that's right there to me, a disqualifier for a company like that.
Well, you certainly have the experience in that project.
I do, and it's not a good one. So
So,
again, that's just my opinion.
sorry to hear that. Jerry?
I rated the companies for selection. I rated them in the order of presentation. I think CBI was number 1, Russo was number 2, Gorio was number 3, and RGB was number 4. I was impressed with CBI from their initial proposal. I mean, look at the amount of work that they gave us as compared to the other people. I mean, there's twice as much work and information. They did a lot of legwork up front. There was a lot of photographs specific to our job. They touched on all that stuff at the presentation. Any one of these companies can do the job. I mean, our jobs are small roofs by in the whole scheme of life. They're very small jobs. Russo Bar, they have done hundreds and hundreds of roofs. They're certainly capable of it. They picked up on some of the same issues that CBI had presented. So, I mean, that's a feather in their cap. DeGorio, I wasn't really, first of all, I wasn't impressed by the fact that they didn't come in person. They didn't care enough to take the time out of their day to drive over to Attleboro. And that says a little something about how interested they are in it. They were big on the one-stop shop, but that's not really a big issue for the work that we're doing. We're doing a roof, we're not doing a whole building, so we don't need a one-stop shop. We need something that's going to design a roof. They don't have as much roofing experience as some of the other firms that talked. Same thing with RGB. They have experience, but they're more of a complete architecture firm. They don't specialize in roofing like Russo Bar does. And they didn't do much talking about our project at all. They didn't touch on very little items specific to our project. It was more or less a boilerplate type of presentation. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, Gail?
I too rank them in the order that they presented and for much of the same reasons that were already stated. So I won't go into that too much, but I felt I was very impressed with their RFQ response as I was their presentation. They really focused on our project and not other projects out there, other projects they've done. And Russo Bar, of course, I think is good, but I agree that we should diversify who we use in the city. I don't think we should stick with the same firms every time. So I vote as CBI being my first choice. I feel the same way, DiGiorgio, I think that was their name, that they didn't show up. That says a lot. And RGB really didn't say much about our project. And I think Ed was trying to stump them, to ask them questions about our project to figure out if they actually showed up, because I wasn't sure if they showed up or not. But it was clear that they did not show up at that site visit. And that's it for me.
Okay. Andrew?
I'm kind of in line with everyone else. CBI and Russo Bar at the top, and RGB and DiGiorgio at the bottom. RGB, their presentation was mainly going through their proposal, just going over previous projects of theirs. Some of them seem like they might have been 20 years old. DiGiorgio didn't get too specific with Attleboro, and then CBI was very specific. It was very apparent that they were out on site and have been on the roofs, and the gentlemen that were present here tonight were on the roofs. Russo Bar, with their previous experience with the city, it was close between CBI and Russo Bar. With Russo Bar, they had mentioned a unit price of around $32 a square foot, and CBI at $26 a square foot. So that's why I've got CBI as number 1, Russo Bar number 2, DiGiorgio number 3, and RGB is number 4.
Okay. Thank you. Jackie?
Same thing, CBI number 1. I liked their detail in their preliminary papers that they had given to us, and they went through a lot of details here. Russo Bar, number 2. Although I could flip-flop back and forth on either one of those two, back and forth. I liked what Mike had said about the Russo Bar, picking up on the overall information, doing according to the specs, but then having their over and above qualifications and expectations. I like that particular point from Russo Bar. And the other 2 I kind of eliminated. 3, 4, DGREO and RGB 4.
Okay. Ed,
Well, basically, I tried to evaluate them in terms of what they were asked to present. And there was little doubt that CBI was the most thorough in doing that. They went through everything very in good detail, following the questions and things they were asked to respond to. Russo Bar did it as well. The other 2 did not. They spoke the slides. The slides were, I couldn't read them. I'll be very honest with you. I couldn't see.
I had the same problem.
Yeah, and I'm not, and they didn't make them in a way that they could be seen. That's not their fault. I felt bad for them. When you make a slide, you have to make it for the audience that's going to look at it. And you can't crowd a page onto a slide. You have to, the letters have to be an inch tall. There are a few rules that you have to follow. And that's not uncommon, by the way. But anyway, I got CBI number 1, Russo Bar number 2, and D. Gregorio number 3, and RGB number 4.
okay, thank you. Terry,
I'll just list them and then I'll give an explanation. RBA is number 1.
Russo Bar was number 1?
Yeah. CBI is number 2. DAI or DiGiorgio is number 3, and RGB is number 4. And the reason that I put RBA versus CBI, and I know I mentioned this once before about experience, but the gentleman that was the project manager only had 12 years experience. And he mentioned about at least 2 or 3 times, oh, I've never seen that before. Well, there's certain things that come, with experience. And that he brought it up about the drainage unit. He never saw this before. So to me, certain things just come along naturally with experience. Obviously, Russo Bar, they've had a good reputation. I agree, don't always use the same vendor. But to me, they stand out. We know that they're good. CBI also, they said $20 to $22 per square foot. Is that today's price, or are they including inflation, or are they just pulling it out of a hat? Because it was kind of all over the place, $26, $20. And DiGiorgio, obviously, because they didn't come here, I didn't think they gave a good presentation. And RGB's presentation was just slides. There was nothing about Attleboro or the roofs in particular. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, Kelly.
I have a very similar analysis, except that I ranked CBI a little bit higher than Russo Bar in this case. While Russo Bar had a great presentation overall, I felt that CBI put a great deal of work into their response. They seem to have very intimate familiarity with the project and really demonstrated an interest in coming up with real solutions for our unique buildings, for the differences between the buildings. They really talked to those specifics in a way that I could really appreciate. I believe that with the pricing issue, the one question I did have is whether their estimates included things like the drainage, or whether those were just raw estimates with regard to the roofing. So I got the
That's
impression
the way
that
I took
maybe we didn't dig into that quite enough with CBI, whereas Russo Bar seemed to roll that into the pricing, and that seemed more comparable to what we heard from the others as well. DeGiorgio, I felt like they missed an opportunity here to come present in person, to show an interest in the project, to be more specific. And RGB's presentation really fell flat to me. I did not feel that they had an interest in this project specifically. I didn't get the same level of technical understanding of the project and the project challenges from them. And so I ranked them as 4. So overall, 1 CBI, 2 Russo Bar, 3 DeGiorgio, and 4 RGB.
Okay. Going in, I had CBI number 1 and Russo Bar as number 2. And I switched them in my mind. And so I have Russo Bar as number 1 and CBI as number 2. I will say that DeGiorgio's presentation was terrible, but that was only exceeded by RGB's.
Yeah.
And I don't even know why RGB bothered showing up, because they had no interest. They wasted everybody's time, in my opinion. And perhaps I was skewed to RBA over CBI by the fact that we know them and we know the work they do. And they've done excellent work for us. And so on that past experience, I moved them ahead of CBI, but boy, we can't go wrong with CBI either. The level of detail that they went into, they really wanted the job. And so, I can look here and I can see that we have 6 votes for number 1 for CBI and 3 for Russo Bar. So it really didn't matter in the end where I had them. So I think it's pretty clear to me that CBI is the winner.
You do need to make sure CBI knows that we're a city.
Yes, we'll have
They
to.
did keep saying town.
Yes, we'll have to emphasize that.
They
to
weren't
them.
the only ones that.
No, they weren't, but of the 2 top ones,
Right.
at least our Russo Bar knew we were a city.
I heard
Yeah.
it as a term of endearment.
I don't.
Yeah.
No, it's an issue.
So the bottom line is that we don't have to ask Jeremy to add the points up, because it's pretty obvious there were 6 first place votes for 1 and 3 for the other. So.
Well, I didn't know that when I started, so let me at least give you the numbers. Lowest, so I tallied them up. So the lowest, you get 1 point for first, 2 points for second. So the low score, the better. CBI had 12, RBA had 15, and then DeGiorgio 27 and RGB 36.
Yeah. So thank you for confirming that, Jeremy. Just for yucks, Jeremy, how would you have voted?
I would have went with the consensus that CBI at 1, Russo Bar at 2, and then kind of indifferent between 3 and 4.
Okay. So therefore, a motion would be in order to recommend to the mayor that we hire CBI for this that we enter into negotiations with CBI for a contract, including a price proposal.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then at 8:50, we should adjourn. Is there a motion to that effect?
So
Wait,
moved.
Jack, pay the bills. Jack, pay the bills.
Pay the bills. Oh,
We
didn't pay the
we
bills.
did.
We did.
No.
We voted to pay the
No,
bills.
No, we did. No, we didn't.
Yeah.
I was sure we did. Well,
You didn't take a vote to pay the bill.
All right, you're right, we did. Sorry. That was so long ago, I forgot. All right,
We did?
adjourn.
I don't remember doing that.
so all those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion's unanimous. Have a good night, everyone.